the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, we ask these ancestors to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa and marched down the Nile, laying the foundations for human civilization and culture, we ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of these African ancestors who built their pyramids and their temples to their God concepts, to their principles, and to their moral values, who left us a legacy of architecture and monumental building unparalleled in the history of the world, we ask these ancestors who built the pyramids, who built the temples, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these African ancestors who took this African culture and extended it throughout Africa, building the stone cities of Zimbabwe, building the empires of the Sudan, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, building the Swahili city-states along the east coast of Africa, and in Christian Africa, asking King Lalibela and giving him the courage to build the 12 churches of Lalibela from the ground down, monuments to the world. We ask these Africans to spread this culture to the Dogo and to the Akan and to the Yoruba and to the Bankongo and to the Zulu. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the Africans who opened up Africa, opened up the Nile Valley to other cultures and other peoples, and they came in and nurtured themselves on the African greatness. First coming in early with the ancient Hebrews, and they synthesized this culture and produced Judaism. Later coming in were the Christians, and they synthesized this culture and produced Christianity. Coming in were also the Greeks, who took the African culture, synthesized it, and produced Greek civilization. And then later, the Prophet Muhammad, and with the Arabs coming into the Nile Valley, they synthesized the culture and produced Islam. We ask these African ancestors, who as part of their legacy laid the foundations for Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek civilization, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask those African ancestors pulled out of Africa, taken to the hells of North America, South America, the Caribbean, maintaining the spirit of African humanity in their hearts and in their minds, and who left us this enormous legacy of struggle. We ask those Africans who resisted enslavement in the villages of Africa, who resisted enslavement in the shores of Africa, who resisted enslavement in those forts and dungeons, who resisted enslavement in the holds of those ships, who resisted enslavement when they arrived on these shores in the New World. We ask these Africans who ran into the highlands of northeast Brazil and established for 100 years the first free republic in the Americas, the Republic of Palmares, and their last great leader, Zumbi, who spared and sacrificed. We ask these Africans who replicated the Brazilian experience and went into the highlands of Jamaica and became the maroon-free communities. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of the Guyanas and Suriname and created free republic of the Suramaka and the Ajuka. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of Georgia and the swamps of Florida and moved with the Seminole Indians and resisted oppression. We ask these Africans who left us a legacy of struggle and resistance, the likes of which no one in the world has, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these Africans who created and laid for us a foundation of struggle and resistance that was passed on generation after generation, that was passed on to Harriet Tubman, who fought her way out of enslavement and became a symbol of freedom for all of us. Similarly, Frederick Douglass and hundreds of thousands of others fought their way out of enslavement. We ask those Africans who went with Boukman Dessalines to create the greatest revolutionary experience in the history of the world, the Haitian Revolution, leaving us a legacy, the likes of which no one else has had. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future.
It is 8 minutes now after 6 o'clock. Very, very pleasant morning to you. We're inside of the Africa Forum. It's Running African. We go through until 10 o'clock this morning. That's when DJ Talia comes in for the Big A. Reuniting the African family for development. That is a vision. The vision of this program is to reunite the African family for development. Our mission, bearing witness, demanding change. Our mission, crafting an African-centered agenda for change and development. Blazing new paths toward Africa's rendezvous with destiny. You're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Sunday, June 8, 2014. My name is Kheru Ma'at Kheru. My broadcast assistant this morning is Kishima Francis. We're very, very happy to welcome Kishima Francis once again to the family. Welcome, Kishima. Welcome. She's back with us. Kishima Francis on the Africa Forum, Running African. You'll have her, hear her, see her every once in a while. But she's back with us on the Africa Forum, and we're happy to have her again this morning as we continue to reunite the African family for development. We've got an interesting program lined up for you this morning. Let me just say good morning also to our extended team. Thank you very much, Shane, who's just walking out. To our extended team, our telephone operators, I walked in was Shamar, and I know that we're changing the baton just about now. So I'm not quite sure if Simone has made it in, but I know that this is what is happening this morning. It is a team, and we go through until 10. It's a family. We're here all day. We've got an interesting program lined up for you this morning. We're going to be looking at Boko Haram, but we're looking wider and deeper because our brother, Professor Horace Campbell, has written an insightful article, treatise, column on sexual slavery. It's an op-ed actually. Sexual slavery, sexual terrorism in the context of the kidnapping of the Nigerian girls. As you know, Professor Horace Campbell is a veteran Pan-Africanist. He is Professor of African American Studies and Political Science at Syracuse University. He is the author of many texts, including Global NATO and the Catastrophic Failure in Libya. He's on this morning. We're going to be talking about the menace of Boko Haram and fundamentalism in Africa. He joins me at around about 7:30. Also at 7 o'clock, Devon Evans, Garveyite, Pan-Africanist, Rastafarian, and senior journalist. He returns to the studio as we continue to celebrate 100 years of Garveyism, 100 years of UNIA. This morning we're looking and focusing within the context of an article written by Lance Nita and also new developments regarding the birthplace of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Devon Evans joins me in the studio. We're zooming in on the launch of a Cultural Agencies Association in Jamaica, and so Director of Culture and Education at the Ministry of Education, Amina Blackwood Meeks, joins me on the phone lines to talk about that. Sounds like a great idea, brilliant idea, the Cultural Agencies Association. Also, Akan Priestess Fufie is joining me on the phone lines this morning to talk about the Taino celebrations, which will happen as part of the wider Maroon celebrations in Charlestown, Portland, and that's happening later on this month, just a few days away actually. A lot to talk about, a lot to do this morning. Thank you for joining us on the internet at iriafm.net. Thank you for joining us on your Android apps, on your BlackBerry and iPhone apps. Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you. And remember that we're at irefm.net. You can follow me on Twitter at Kabu Ma'at Kheru. That's K-A-B-U. Kabu Ma'at M-A-A-T Kheru K-H-E-R-U. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kabu Ma'at Kheru. You can also check us out and friend us also on Facebook at Kabu Ma'at Kheru Williams. That's where we are. We'll return your post. We're all over the social media. Read my blog also. All right. At 15 minutes after 6 o'clock, we're going to be taking just a bit of music, and then we'll be right back with much more. We've got so much to talk about. Got a lot to talk about. Hey, remember that at 8:30 also we have the cash pot draw. In between, we've got your music. We are hoping to take your telephone calls, and we've got some issues, some housekeeping to do. Stay with us.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
Everywhere you go.
Quite a few things happening in the Pan-African world this week, and even as we get into the beginning of the week, lots and lots happening. You might have heard, I haven't, but China is flexing its military muscle. China is flexing its military muscle in Africa. We're not surprised. It was only going to be a matter of time before we saw this happening. So we understand that the Chinese Navy fleet has paid a friendly visit to Angola. We are not surprised. As a matter of fact, we have been talking ad nauseum on this program about the Angola model being rolled out across the continent of Africa, about Angola being ground zero. Angola is a battleground, literally. Why? We must look closer. We have been talking about how that Angola model has been rolled out not just across the continent of Africa, but also wherever we are in the African diaspora, we can recognize the China's Angola model being rolled out. We're also seeing those in leadership positions, those who are in leadership positions, literally selling the land, selling our birthright, selling that which they have been entrusted to protect and to keep by our ancestors, and many before, and all the way to the Tainos, if you want to go there with me. So we're seeing this, and we continue to see this, that those who are in positions of leadership are themselves our worst enemies. And if it is that is so, it means that we're in a state of war. And what does that mean in terms of how we respond as we continue to blaze new paths to Africa's rendezvous with destiny? Are we prepared to wait on the gradual unfolding of history, or are we prepared to give history a revolutionary push? Questions we must ask ourselves and answer them too. So that China has rolled out its Navy fleet and it's flexing its military muscle in Africa. It's part of the ongoing Cold War, and they say that this is not what it is, but the imperialistic, neo-colonialistic Cold War that is, and sometimes not so cold, that's unfolding on the continent of Africa, that is being played out in the Caribbean waters, in the Atlantic waters, on the continent of Africa, must not miss our attention. We must pay attention to this because it impacts and affects all of us at various different levels. It speaks to the re-enslavement. In some cases, we weren't totally emancipated, and we'll talk about that later. But to the re-enslavement, the and neo-colonization of a people, of a space. Land is important. Land is important to a people's destiny. As we continue to blaze new paths to Africa's rendezvous with destiny, we can't do that as a landless people. We must do that owning the land. The same land that our ancestors owned, by the way. In some cases, a land that was ripped from the bowels of our mothers. So there is a fight for land as food becomes part of the global war. Land becomes even more important, and Africa, as we heard Gordon Brown saying so many years ago, we highlighted that in this space. Gordon Brown, the former UK Prime Minister, he pointed, what was it, 7, 8, 9 years ago? He talked about, he talked about the importance of Africa to the 21st century imperialistic, neocolonialistic plans of white supremacy. And yes, and he said it without blinking an eye, that Africa is the last frontier. His words, not mine. He told us that Africa is the last frontier. And African people looked at each other, grinned, and cut each other's throat. We continue to fight each other. We continue to be at odds with each other. To win this revolution, as Bobby E. Wright tells us, we can't do it in conflict with each other. The conflict must be with the institutions of racism and white supremacy. We can't, there's no way we're going to win this war against neocolonialism and imperialism if we continue to be in conflict with each other as individuals at individual levels or as countries, as Africans. And this is what we see unfolding wherever we are as Africans. We see this on the continent of Africa. We see this in Jamaica, where young people have turned against each other, where families have turned against each other, and where we're killing ourselves. No way can we win this war with that state of mind. So that as a Cold War unfolds on the continent of Africa, we've got a job to do. We're talking about our leaders and those of us, those of them among us who are in positions of leadership. Bobby E. Wright, and we're quoting Bobby E. Wright a lot this morning because he talked about his book, The Psychopathic Racial Personality, is relevant to us in this time. He talked about the leadership of black African people everywhere. He understood as a psychologist, and as a black psychologist, and was a thorn in the brain of black men and women posing as leaders. In many of them, he diagnosed a deep personal dishonor that disqualified them for their trusted positions. You'll find that in the introduction to his book. He was a thorn in the brain of black men and women posing as leaders. In many of them, he diagnosed a deep personal dishonor that disqualified them for their trusted positions. Does that sound, are you recognizing that? Are you able to say, that's true? That is the bane of African people wherever we are. That there is a deep personal dishonor that disqualify those persons who have ensconced themselves in positions of leadership. He said, watch the leadership, especially those proclaiming their God-given answer to the problems of African people, of black people. Watch the leadership. Watch the leadership, because they continue to sell your land from beneath you, and then they invite consultants to diagnose what your problems are when you have no recourse but to so-called squat. Because that's what we're hearing now, that consultants are coming in to deal with squatting. It's a wrong way up that we're looking at this. We're turning ourselves upside down, and we're looking at the problem through the wrong lens and the wrong area of the body. Flip the thing around and let's use our brains instead of the other part that we tend to be using. And the idea of calling in consultants to deal with squatting, I think, is a slap in the face of the Jamaican people, because we understand the problem of squatting in Jamaica is a problem of landlessness. And you don't need a consultant who you're going to be paying the children, using the children's lunch money, the children's bread, to pay to come tell us that. And maybe they won't tell us that because you're going to be paying them to tell us what it is that you want them to tell us. So what have you done? You have created a solution. Now you must find a problem to fit it. And this is what many of the so-called leadership and persons in positions of leadership are doing in Jamaica. They first of all find themselves a problem, a solution. Find themselves a solution. So the solution is to pay one of your friends, or to pay one of your colleagues, or to pay somebody who has given great service to the party, because we remain as tribalistic as we are. And so you must pay this person. So how do you pay this person? This is what the dishonorable leadership does in Jamaica. They identify, they find and create in some cases solutions. But how are you going to come to the people to say that we have a solution and the people didn't tell you that they had a problem in that area? You create a problem to fit the solution. This is what we see happening in terms of how Jamaica is being managed, is being guided, is being led by these dishonorable men and women who must also find themselves, yes, dishonorable graves. So Bobby E. Wright says, watch the leadership, especially those proclaiming their God-given answer to the problems of black people. And academia, as Bobby E. Wright tells us, is complicit in this. And we must say that. We have to say that. As someone who uses education, his training, his intellect, his intellectual knowledge, and his skills, always in the best interest of black people, he had a commitment, he had a philosophy of commitment, of accountability and service to the black community. And we challenge academia to understand that you too must understand that you are accountable to the service of the black people. Yes, you are, of the black community. Yes, you are. You are accountable. You are. Yeah, we didn't send you to school, but we did. We did. So let us begin to talk about how we liberate ourselves from imperialism, how we liberate ourselves from enslavement, and how we liberate ourselves from neocolonialism, because we do have an issue to deal with. Let us begin to talk about how we deal with those issues. So all of this because I talked about China. China has rolled out its military might, and just a little bit of it in Africa, flexing its muscle, saying to Europe and saying to the United States, because you know that there's a big war going on in the South China Seas. Yes, there is. And they're really just toying with each other there. They're, sailing down each other, or, driving down each other, whatever you call it when they're on the seas, and they're using the ships to displace other countries' ships. So there's a big war happening on the South China Seas, as both China and the United States and Europe, along with Europe, flex their muscles and their military muscles. They're preparing for something, and Africa is at the center of it. So the 16th Escort Task Force of the Chinese Navy arrived in Luanda Port, Angola, on Thursday last for a 3-day friendly visit which is the first of its kind to the African country. So the 16th Escort Task Force of a Chinese Navy arrived in the Luanda port of Angola on Thursday for a 3-day friendly visit. At 9 a.m. local time, missiles frigates Yanchen and Luanang and the supply ship Taihu, flying Chinese and Angolan national flags, docked at the Luanda harbor and was welcomed by the Chinese ambassador to Luanda, Zhao Qixing, Chinese military attaché to Angola, Zhu Shaosong, Angola Navy officials, and hundreds of Chinese expatriates working in Angola. Commander of the task force, Li Pengcheng, told reporters that China and Angola enjoyed friendly cooperation, and the armed forces of the two countries also maintained friendly exchanges, including professional and personal training and peacekeeping. And this is coming right at the time when AFRICOM is rolling out in Nigeria and West Africa and areas where China is on the pretext of trying to find these Nigerian girls. So the fleet's visit to Angola was aimed, according to them, at promoting understanding. It was aimed at promoting understanding. And my reading of that is, understand this. So the fleet's visit to Angola was aimed at promoting understanding, mutual trust, and pragmatic cooperation between the armed forces, particularly the navies of the two countries. During the visit, crew members of a Chinese fleet will exchange naval expertise with their Angolan counterparts, and missile frigates Yangchen and Luoyang were expected to remain open to the public. The Chinese sailors plan to stage a friendly basketball match with the Angolan Navy, visit an orphanage in Luanda, and Chinese companies operating in Angola. And as you know, Angola is the sixth leg of the fleet's visit to Africa, which would also take it to Namibia and South Africa. So they're rolling out the Navy on the continent of Africa. It was only a matter of time before China rolled out its Navy in Africa. And believe me, I think that if we watch this closely, we'll see that China will soon be rolling out its army on the continent of Africa. What does that say for the militarization of Africa by the United States and Europe? What does that say for AFRICOM? What does that say for the continued betrayal of Africa by its leaders? After 50 years of independence, as Ruda Singwa tells us, Africa is rippled with conflicts, and it is foremost Africa's leaders who are to blame. African leadership has to care about the African people and invest in them in the sense of Ubuntu. And when we talk about Africa and the betrayal of Africa by its leaders, we mean the betrayal of Africa and the African diaspora by its leaders. That's what we're talking about. Not just continental Africa, but also the African diaspora. And this is what we're dealing with. So how do we begin to change this trajectory? How do we turn this around? How do we flip this on its head? What is our role in all of this? We certainly cannot continue to be part of a tribal situation that is ongoing in our own country. We certainly cannot continue to kill each other. We certainly cannot continue to be turning at each other in our own ongoing civil war and conflict. They do not call it a civil war in Jamaica, but we know we're in the middle of a civil war. We have more murders in Jamaica than almost anywhere else in the world. Black people killing black people. So we can't change anything that way. But it is expedient for those who continue to betray Africa, for those who continue to betray Jamaica, that we continue to kill ourselves. In the bottom line later on this morning, I'll be talking about some of those issues. I'll be talking about the prayer that is said in Parliament, and the fact that the prayer asks for the blessing and the protection and the safety and the happiness of Queen Elizabeth, and not the people of Jamaica, so that when parliamentarians gather, what do they talk about? What do they pray for? They pray for the Queen and not for the people of Jamaica. That's a very, very serious indictment on Jamaica's parliament, which is really the Queen's parliament, as Jamaica is continually betrayed by its leaders. We want to talk also in the bottom line about a comment I heard just listening to IRFM News made by Senator Norman Grant about Denby and the Denby Agricultural Show this year, and the shocking and alarming comment that he made. You would never believe this, but we're going to talk about it in the bottom line this morning. We're also going to be talking this morning about an issue that came out of the United States just this week, where the U.S. Army made one of the biggest blunders of all times by instituting rules and regulations which effectively ban black hairstyles, the hairstyles of black women. We'll talk about all of that in the bottom line. In the meantime, though, we are going to go to a quick break and come back, because we want to talk in a short while to Devon Evans, and we want to see if we can squeeze in some of your telephone calls right here inside of the Africa Forum this morning. Now 6:39.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
Angola is ground zero. Angola is a battleground. Hey, let's squeeze in a few calls. I don't like to use the term squeeze. But anyway, let's take a few calls as we open the phone lines. 974-5079, 5051, 5043, and 1-888-991-4152 as we touch base with you. Ankuja Seneb, Life Prosperity Health. This is Schematic. Ankuja Seneb, Life Prosperity Health. It's a greeting wishing you life, prosperity, and health. Ankuja Seneb. All right, so as we open the phone lines, we're going to be going straight to the lines to take your telephone calls. 974-5051. Hotep?
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, Ankuja Seneb.
Yeah, man. Are you talking about the United States Army?
Yes. The U.S. Army? No, I'm talking more about the Chinese Navy. But what about the U.S. Army?
You were saying that in the U.S. Army, the style, African style.
Oh, okay, yes, and we'll
Spanish.
Yeah. The U.S. Army came up with some rules and regulations, which they said were to make the army look more professional, more efficient, and so on. And those rules and regulations, they say inadvertently, but they effectively banned black hairstyles. I'll talk some more about it in the bottom line this morning.
All right.
All right, Tim. All right, continuing to take your calls. Just a few calls in the early morning. 6:45, 974-5051. Oh, let's do this and go to the next call. It's 6:45. As we go back to the phone lines, yes, you're on live. Hotep, Ankuja Seneb.
Hotep, Sister Andrea.
Hotep.
Hotep.
Yes, all right. What do you have in the background? There's a loud noise in the background. What's that?
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, man, turn on the preaching, man.
Don't read it, man. Don't read the book, yeah, man.
Yes.
When I listen to the program all along and thing, but
yes,
honestly, to me just forward back and thing.
Yes.
It's like, it was a detergent performance.
Okay.
For, and tell us they did a awesome performance. So all these years I'm outside of Jamaica, everything in touch with old.
Okay, brilliant.
It's like gold.
Good
and everything in touch new. So he must say, boy, I want to come do some work with them. Especially you. Find things. So he might ask me to pass on a number where you can contact him.
All right, so let's do that on Monday, or you can call back. And my broadcast assistant this morning is Kishima Francis. I give her the information, all right?
Yeah, ask Kishima to receive it as soon as I call back in.
Yeah, man, she's expecting your call. Just say that you called and you're calling back for Kishima Francis. She's listening.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, man, you too. Hotel.
Yeah.
All right, taking your telephone calls. It's a very serious thing, my brother. Very serious thing, my brother, Jabooks. And I think when I can't come take Mama Africa for me again, but believe me, my brother, they're doing it. And leaders looking like us are selling it to them and in some cases giving it to them free. As we go back to the phone lines. Hotep? Hotep. Yes?
Where the pan now, the Africa thing are everything then.
You mean no, man? Go ahead. You're in this segment.
When the Africa, the Boko Haram thing.
Yes,
is a serious thing going on, you know. Because look here, as they admitted couple weeks ago, that Boko Haram is a subsidiary of Al Qaeda. They're not telling you who Al Qaeda is.
I'm very interested in that so-called admission. That admission, if you notice, Garnet, let Goodluck Jonathan off the hook. That admission took the pressure off, absolved him of any responsibility of going to find those girls, because what's up? The politics of Nigeria, and it's more complex than we are making it out to be. It's not linear.
Believe me, because where I want to show you is, if you notice, soon after the parent group reached down in Nigeria,
yes.
We know where the girls are, and that is because we know where the girls are. The backstage pull the strings.
And it will be very interesting to hear when Professor Campbell comes on, because he's been looking very, very closely at the politics of Nigeria. He's been looking very closely at Boko Haram and the origins of Boko Haram, but also, yes.
Right now, the United States, they are Nigeria. I take the whole Nigerian army for fool.
But look here, but you're talking about the United States and Nigeria. Remember, that is France and the United States. And it's not just Nigeria. It's Chad, Mali, Niger, all of that area. And so it's a land, that entire area, propelled now by the situation with the girls who have been kidnapped, has opened up. The entire area is now opened up. It's like a prostitute spreading her legs for France and Nigeria to rape the country. You notice they tell us about they drop people at Chad and they drop people here. It's AFRICOM. Nigeria had just recently said they did not want AFRICOM's headquartered in their country. And they had to backtrack on that in short order. So this is a complex issue. We must not reduce it to the invisible Al-Qaeda. Yes.
Geography too, because... Yes. It's not Boko Haram alone, it's Al-Shabaab, because see if like last week, you point out...
And in Al-Europe and Al-America and Al-France. Yes, go ahead.
Last week, you point out almost a whole geographic area there, where you can see like, through the French, them and the British, them did have for them piece of Africa already.
Yes.
You can see a new American piece.
Yes.
Cut out now.
Yes, and America, and we must not underestimate France. France is the aggressor on the continent of Africa.
Used to them being in Africa already.
No, but you see, but we don't talk much about them because they're more imperialistic than any of the European powers. And then America is not even close to that. America is militarizing Africa in a wicked kind of way. Escalated in a serious way under President Barack Obama, which is a shame. But this is what is unfolding. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
In closing, you say watch the leaders.
Yes.
And seriously, we have to watch the leaders, but we have to understand them position too sometimes, you know? Because you see like Goodluck Jonathan.
Yes.
In kind of feel sorry for him, you know?
Really? We don't have any time for pity, Ronnie or Garnet.
In the sense that long before the Boko Haram thing reach where it reach now.
Yeah.
A long time them have him stick up around the corner there, you know.
I don't know who is them. You know, because there's a lot. I don't know about the United States and France. They're also sticking up themselves. But let's talk about that another time. We just want to take a few more, but I think it's a conversation that we need to have. Thanks, Garnet. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Inside of the Africa Forum, yes, we must talk about Africa's betrayal by its leaders. We must do that. We must do that. And we must talk about the African diaspora's betrayal by those who are in leadership positions. All right, let's take a few more. 974-5079. Hotep?
Hotep, this is Sharon.
Oh, hi, Sharon. Uncle Jean Saneb. But you're just coming back from the Gambia, right?
Yes.
Right, so you can teach us something this morning, language-wise, so go right ahead.
Well, Nagadef.
Nagadef?
It's hello, and how are you?
Nagadef. Hello. And how do you respond?
Maniferek is Maniferek.
Maniferek.
I'm well, thank you.
Well, there you go, Nagadef. How are you? Hello. And Maniferek. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, my sister.
Yes, go ahead.
At the Roots Symposium, Dr. Julius Garvey was one of the speakers, along with Ranola Rashidi, and Dr. Garvey called on the return of Ubuntu, the principle of humanity and brotherhood, of seeing ourselves in our brother's eyes and living through a reflection of the other. And when I reflected on that, just now we were calling on unity amongst our people to go forward. I realized that at Unity Hall in May and April, instead of being inside Unity Hall, we sat under a tree to call meetings with Stephen Golden. And I was glad to be invited to be there. And it's amazing how these meetings we have no access to the inside of the building.
Where is Unity Hall?
It's in downtown Kingston. And I wanted to not to mention one more point, that UNIA ATL Center and Resource Manchester.
Are you talking Liberty Hall?
Liberty Hall.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes. Owned by the UNIA, but managed by the government. I think now managed by the government.
Yeah.
Yes, but the UNIA ATL Center and Resource Manchester is also closed. And we had no access there when we celebrated Marcus Messiah Garvey, the fair in February.
You had no access to Liberty Hall?
To the UNIA Center and Resource Manchester.
Why?
For some reason it was closed. And the lady president asked the citizens, why are they allowing this to happen? So we would like to ask, going forward, that citizens really do examine their right to the UNIA ACL centers.
Yeah, and I think also, and what you're saying is very, very important, and it's a two-way street, because I think the education or the public education process is going to be critical to how people view that, and to whether or not the populace and the masses begin to re-examine that. So you're doing the right thing in the public forum, but even the call you talked about under the trees and so on, it's the first time I'm hearing about it. I'm in the media, so that we're saying that it's going to be a two-way street when we make calls for unity and for people to examine their rights and so on, because we expect that they should, but miseducation, years of enslavement and neo-colonization, people are in a stupor, and to get them out of that, for those who have recognized and identified themselves as guides in the process, that is going to take more than talking among ourselves. I think now is going to have to be what we do.
So the call to action is to become to take action in whatever way we can.
I agree with you.
By speech,
I agree with you. Do have to go, my sister. Let me take in one before 7. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Well, let's see if we can take a final one before we get to 7 o'clock. 974-5079, 5051, 5043, and 1-888-991-4152. Hotep?
Good morning, Kabu.
Hotep, my brother, Hotep.
Yes, you see, I think about leadership.
Yes.
I was checking this brother out, Alton Maddox, and he said something about black leadership.
Yes.
Very interesting. He said black leadership consider black people as hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're going to do is ride black people for whatever they're worth.
Mm-hmm.
That's a strong statement.
You can do that to when the minds of black people, when the minds of Africans are enslaved and not emancipated. You see, that's the thing, and this is why the greatest battlefield now, as who said that to us? I think it's Dr. John Henry Clark. Is a battle for the mind. It's a battle for the mind, because if the mind is enslaved, then you'll always be in a position of serving your master. And miseducation is a part of the enslavement process, the kind of oppression we find from Parliament, the prayer that goes to ask for the safety of the Queen, and black people, black parliamentarians stand up in Parliament and defend that with everything they have. They defend that, you know. So that it's a battle for the mind.
I want to hail you for the historical move with the conference thing with Africa and
right, the CBAC that happened at you. As a matter of fact, we're going to Professor Tunde Bewaji will be joining me not next week but the week after, because next week is Father's Day, but the week after in the studio to Sankofa on CBAC. Yeah.
All right. Lastly, see, I want to say, black people, who you think gonna do this thing for you?
Yes.
Who is gonna do it for you?
Yes.
You gotta do it for yourself.
And that is why enough has been said. Now let it be done. We have no friends. You gotta do it. We gotta do it for ourselves. Of course. We're gonna leave it there, my brother. Thank you very much. Uncle Johnson Ebb, life, prosperity, and health. All right, going to be talking to Devon Evans in a little while. Right before we talk to Devon Evans, though, the Pan-Africanist activist who does not and did not separate her activism from her art, Dr. Maya Angelou. The memorial service for her was yesterday. Speaking at that memorial service, and it was such a beautiful memorial service, Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Cicely Tyson, and so many other strong black women and men who spoke there. I was especially taken by the speech made by Michelle Obama, the First Lady of the United States. And just before we speak to Devon, it's a pretty short speech. We're going to be taking that to you. So let's take a break and come right back. Now 7 o'clock, and as I said before, let's quickly listen to Michelle Obama, the First Lady of the United States, as she spoke at the memorial service for Dr. Maya Angelou yesterday.
Thank you so much. My heart is so full. My heart is so full. Woo! BB. Oprah, why'd you do that? Just why did you put me after this? To the family, Guy, to all of you, to the friends, President Clinton, Oprah, my mother, Cicely Tyson, Ambassador Young. Let me just share something with you. My mother, Marion Robinson, never cares about anything I do. But when Dr. Maya Angelou passed, she said, "You're going, aren't you?" I said, "Oh, Mom, I'm not really sure. I have to check with my schedule." She said, "You are going, right?" I said, "Well, I'm going to get back to you, but I'm going to have to check with the people, figure it out." I came back up to her room when I found out that I was scheduled to go, and she said, "That's good. Now I'm happy." It is such a profound honor, truly a profound honor to be here today on behalf of myself and my husband as we celebrate one of the greatest spirits our world has ever known, our dear friend Dr. Maya Angelou. In the book of Psalms it reads, "I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth." Well, what a perfect description of Maya Angelou and the gift she gave to her family and to all who loved her. She taught us that we are each wonderfully made, intricately woven and put on this earth for a purpose far greater than we could ever imagine. And when I think about Maya Angelou, I think about the affirming power of her words. The first time I read Phenomenal Woman, I was struck by how she celebrated black women's beauty like no one had ever dared to before. Our curves, our stride, our strength, our grace. Her words were clever and sassy. They were powerful and sexual and boastful. And in that one singular poem, Maya Angelou spoke to the essence of black women. But she also graced us with an anthem for all women, a call for all of us to embrace our God-given beauty. And oh, how desperately black girls needed that message. As a young woman, I needed that message. As a child, my first doll was Malibu Barbie. That was the standard for perfection. That was what the world told me to aspire to. But then I discovered Maya Angelou, and her words lifted me right out of my own little head. Her message was very simple. She told us that our worth has nothing to do with what the world might say. Instead, she said, each of us comes from the Creator trailing wisps of glory. She reminded us that we must each find our own voice, decide our own value, and then announce it to the world with all the pride and joy that is our birthright as members of the human race. Dr. Angelou's words sustained me on every step of my journey. Through lonely moments in ivy-covered classrooms and colorless skyscrapers, through blissful moments mothering two splendid baby girls, through long years on the campaign trail where at times my very womanhood was dissected and questioned. For me, that was the power of Maya Angelou's words. Words so powerful that they carried a little black girl from the south side of Chicago all the way to the White House. And today, as First Lady, whenever the term authentic is used to describe me, I take it as a tremendous compliment because I know that I am following in the footsteps of great women like Maya Angelou. But really, I am just a beginner. I am baby authentic. Maya Angelou, now she was the original. She was the master. For at a time when there were such stifling constraints on how black women could exist in the world, she serenely disregarded all the rules with fiercely passionate, unapologetic self. She was comfortable in every last inch of her glorious brown skin. But for Dr. Angelo, her own transition was never enough. You see, she didn't just want to be phenomenal herself. She wanted all of us to be phenomenal right alongside her. So that's what she did throughout her lifetime. She gathered so many of us under her wing. I wish I was a daughter, but I was right under that wing, sharing her wisdom, her genius, and her boundless love. I first came into her presence in 2008 when she spoke at a campaign rally here in North Carolina. At that point, she was in a wheelchair hooked up to an oxygen tank to help her breathe. But let me tell you, she rolled up like she owned the place. She took the stage as she always did, like she'd been born there. And I was so completely awed and overwhelmed by her presence. I could barely concentrate on what she was saying to me. But while I don't remember her exact words, I do remember exactly how she made me feel. She made me feel like I owned the place too. She made me feel like I had been born on that stage right next to her. And I remember thinking to myself, Maya Angelou knows who I am, and she's rooting for me. So now I'm good. I can do this. I can do this. And that's really true for us all. Because in so many ways, Maya Angelou knew us. She knew our hope, our pain, our ambition, our fear, our anger, our shame. And she assured us that despite it all, in fact, because of it all, we were good. And in doing so, she paved the way for me and Oprah and so many others just to be our good old black woman selves. She taught us all that it is okay to be your regular old self, whatever that is. Your poor self, your broken self, your brilliant, bold, phenomenal self. That was Maya Angelou's reach. She touched me. She touched all of you. She touched people all across the globe, including a young white woman from Kansas who named her daughter after Maya and raised her son to be the first black president of the United States. So when I heard that Dr. Angelo had passed, well, I felt a deep sense of loss. I also felt a profound sense of peace, because there is no question that Maya Angelou will always be with us, because there was something truly divine about Maya. I know that now, as always, she is right where she belongs. May her memory be a blessing to us all. Thank you. God bless.
That was the First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama, as she spoke at Dr. Maya Angelou's memorial service, also attended by Oprah Winfrey, Bill Clinton, and many, many more. As I said, I'd found the speech, it was interesting for me because, I've read Michelle Obama's thesis, the thesis she wrote about, access and access by black people to services and so on. And I read that at the time that before she was a First Lady, at a time when the campaign was going on and so on, because I wanted to get into her head to see what her thinking was. And with the American presidency, once you get there, you can't be as black as you should be, and so on. So I was reading it critically along those lines, and not to criticize, but to understand. And this is one of the first times that I've heard a reflection or anything close to what I read in this thesis in terms of the First Lady Michelle Obama claiming her Africanness and her African identity in a space, a public space, an international space, that the memorial service was lost yesterday. All right, quick break. We'll be right back. Now, 12 minutes after 7 o'clock.
Hide nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory.
Africans, home and abroad. Africa awakens creators.
All right, as we enter another segment of the program, you're inside of the Africa Forum, Running African, and my very special guest in this segment is Devon Evans. Devon, welcome once again. Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah, morning everyone, morning all listeners.
Devon Evans, of course, is a senior journalist. He is a Garveyite, Pan-Africanist, Rastafarian, and one who has, for the longest time, many moons, been ensuring is like the conscience and the memory of the Jamaican people as it relates to Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Devon, in this 100th year of the UNIA, 100 years of Garveyism, we saw an article in the newspaper Sunday, June 1, saw this after I came off here actually, written by Lance Nita, who had invited to come on but who couldn't be here today, but he did write to say that you both were to be here, and he said you would do a brilliant job. All right. But he wrote in the newspaper about the birthplace of Marcus Garvey. Apparently he went there as part of a team, the Heritage Sites Tour, in St. Anne, and it was the St. Anne Homecoming and Heritage Foundation apparently was doing that tour. And he seemed very disappointed that the site, the birthplace of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey remains in a dilapidated condition. And at this time, going there, he noted in the article that the place was locked up, that they had to be peeping through windows, and that when they asked, they were told that it was unoccupied but also unfurnished. And so he was lamenting that and talking about, the extent to which we have ignored this aspect of ourselves, in the birthplace of the first national hero of Jamaica. Devon, this is something that you have been talking about a long time also. Last time you were here, we talked about ground was broken. What can you tell us about where things are with what will eventually, or what is being planned to happen to the birthplace, the home of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, it has taken a new twist, because unfortunately the owner of the property there, Sister Toots, she died a couple of weeks ago.
Wow, condolences to her family. She's been on this program before. You introduced us.
Yeah, from in the 80s.
Yes.
We have been to and in the 90s. Yes. In the early part of IRFM, she was here. Yes. And let me tell you, probably this is one of the situations that has even cost her life. Frustration. Right? You cannot have... The other day, I think it was last week, the parish council did a cutting of the verges along Marcus Garvey Way. And even when they cut it, you go to know the garbage is still there, heaped up and not removed. And I'm happy that Lance went there with this group of people, because I've been speaking all along and people probably didn't take me serious. So when he went there and saw what, and it exposes the truth about how both government and opposition or political leaders treat Garvey as a national hero.
Devon, I haven't been there in a while, but we've been there very, very often. So what I did not know is that the house was now unoccupied.
No, I think they got the wrong impression when they went there. Nobody was there.
Okay.
But the place is occupied, and again, it brings out another problem there. We have this place, and we have it exposing the privacy of the occupants, because this is a private residence. People are living there, and yet still you have people coming in droves, peeping through window, walking around here, and encroaching on the privacy of these people. And
the people who are living there now, they are in some way connected
to...
the
daughters of the owner.
All right, and the owner who just died.
Yes, who just died.
Sister Toads. She died in the United States. Yes. I remember I interviewed her within the last few years, Devon, because you carried her.
Yes, yes.
And I remember that she said, it was in 2007 or 2008. It might have been because it was during the In Search of series, and it was at the time that we went in search of Morlemu Marcus Messiah Garvey. And I remember that she came in and she was very open to negotiating with government in terms of what should and
should could all along she has been open. But let me tell you, there's no willingness. Remember in 1986, we recall when they were planning the 100th anniversary of Marcus Garvey. When I look at that program, no mention was made of the birthplace. And the struggles I had with Mike Henry and the Cultural Development Commission to add it on to that program. And from that time, Sister Toots always tell them she's open if you want to acquire and relocate her. And that was the discussion all along.
The attitude, it seems to me, Devon, that the attitude of the government, and especially this administration, and I have to say especially this administration, we do, Devon, because there was a different attitude by the JLP administration to the birthplace, whether they were just talking, but they did more than that, because we saw towards the end where Bruce Golden went, sourced funding, went and broke ground, however that worked out. And then also we saw where Babsy Grange, and this is not to say, that we're bigging up nobody over nobody, but we really do have to call a spade, where she made this a constant subject of conversation, that it was always in the public sphere through even the Jamaica National Heritage Society. So I feel the level of frustration that I feel as a journalist, just trying to get information from the current administration, the Ministry of Culture, regarding the birthplace of Morlemu Marcus Garvey. I have been working in the media since 1990, and we have been celebrating Marcus Garvey in this space since then. And we have always been able to call somebody or write somebody and to get a response, negative or positive. This is the first time. 1990 to now is how many years?
About
24
years.
So in 24 years, this is the first time, and it hurts me to the core of my being that I'm not able to get through to anyone at the Ministry of Culture who can tell me anything, negative or positive, about the birthplace of Morlemu Marcus Messiah Garvey.
That is what I'm saying.
Something is wrong.
The deafening silence. Because we have been here in this space for many times. We call up people and we talk about Billy Heaven, who was there. Yes. We talk about Stelisa Anna. And even Babsy Grange, while mention her, this parliament is here. I also talk about Shahini Robinson in whose constituency, and she's there in parliament, and need them to stand up, because remember, they were there breaking ground, and they told us that yes, they are ready, this money is there. So I want, why is the deafening sign? Why aren't they complaining?
In the 100th year. This is centenaries are usually celebrated, the rituals around centenary. If you live to be able to celebrate the centenary of anything that is directly related to your culture, to your people, to yourself, then we all have a responsibility to mark the time, to say this must be celebrated. And we must talk about the importance of rituals. The Europeans do it, and we sit and we cry with them. Every September 11, all television stations show you the grand services for 9/11, and it's brilliant because these rituals help you be a witness on behalf of those who have passed. You be a witness that to the fact that this will not happen again under your watch, like those kinds of things. So these rituals are very, very important, and so we cry, we shed tears for those who die from other races. We've now come to the centenary, 100 years of UNIA, of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey, of Garveyism, and the government, the state, will have nothing to do with it. Devon, I think that this calls for something greater than me and you standing here, sitting here and talking.
Yes, it raises a question now. How many of us care? Because we have been here talking, and we need support. Because what it implies that only two of us, nobody cares about what's happened to Garvey. Just Devon Evans and Cabo in studio running up their mouth. Right? We need the people out there.
Many people care. I believe the people do care.
Yeah, but they are too silent.
Right. Why are the streets so silent? We've been asking that question. Why are the streets so silent? Even as we see that we're now in a situation where the current Ministry of Culture does not want to have anything to do with the culture of the Jamaican people, of the African people in Jamaica. We must face that.
Probably one day it's a question of ethnicity.
It is. I think it is, but I also think it's a question of classism, colorism, racism. We must call it.
Yes.
Devon, we must call it.
Yes, because the classism, I met the classism face to face at Liberty Hall.
We must call it.
So we have to call a lot of, it's time, we have to call us, and I can sympathize with Lance, because the level of discussion here, I know Lance didn't want to go there, and probably we might pull him there if he's here with us. But this is it, and the people of St. Ann, remember we have a Garvey Study Center in St. Anne's at the library. You know, when it was open the other day, when Lance and his group of visitors went there and they went and studied, it was open and they went upstairs and they got the impression that this study center is open to the public.
Yes.
It is not.
You were concerned about that at the time. In the 100th year of Garvey, Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey, this is the same concern, that this area, that is a Garvey center, is not open to the public. Lance Nita in his article identified across the world where there are monuments and so on to Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and I like that because I hadn't gone ahead myself and identify them, but he identified so many of them, and I just want to quickly he said, take a look at his memorials overseas. Schools, colleges, highways, buildings have been named in his honor all over the world. In Africa, his name is revered in Cape Town, Ghana, in Cape Coast, that is, Ghana, also in Nairobi, in Nigeria, in Kenya. And he talked about the Marcus Garvey Library in Nottingham, that a street named after him in Brixton, a Marcus Garvey Centre in Nottingham, a statue in Willesden Green Library, Brent in London, a plaque marks where he died at 53 Talgart Road in London. And he said in the USA there's a memorial park in Harlem, a public library branch in New York, and a major street named after him in Brooklyn. There's a Garvey Cultural Center in Colorado, a Garvey Festival held annually in Pembroke, Illinois, and his bust is housed in the Organization for American States Hall of Fame in Washington. And then he goes on to say Martin Luther King paid tribute to Garvey on his visit to Jamaica in 1965, describing him as the first man of color to lead and develop a mass movement and to give millions of Negroes a sense of dignity and destiny and to make the Negro feel he was somebody. And that's a direct quote. Don't call me and tell me that I use the word Negro. And so he said also that we owe Mwalimu Marcus Garvey too much to continue to allow this farce, his words, of a double conviction to mar his right to occupy without any encumbrance that most senior position in the rank of distinction and awards given to deserving Jamaicans. And then he talked about lest we forget. And I think it's important that we look at it in this global context and then to ask ourselves, how do we honor Garvey. He has the highest honor, first national hero. But how do we treat that? What does that mean to be the first national hero? If your birthplace is standing still, what does it mean? But Molemu Marcus Mosiah Garvey Devon is more than just the first national hero of Jamaica.
In fact, the word Molemu that you use, it means both a philosopher and a leader. Because you know a lot of philosophers, they talk a lot and write a lot, yes. but they don't lead. Right. So that's why we extol Garvey as Molemu. And as you mentioned, Martin Luther King in United States, racist United States, gave him a national holiday. In 1987, we were only able to get a public holiday in the parish of St. Anne, and since then, nothing else. And so
in this 100th year, what should be done regarding that? Should there be a Molemu Marcus Mosiah Garvey Day, a national holiday? A national
holiday on August 17, Molemu Marcus Garvey Day, and we need to seriously revisit the process of teaching Garveyism, because without knowledge, the people will not know much about who. We have a generation coming up knows nothing about Garvey, and we are skirting around the problem.
Even though, Devon, and to be frank, is that there has been some attempt to get the teachings of Molemu Marcus Mosiah Garvey in the schools, and so we have to. I think we must celebrate that which, no matter how small it is, we must identify, take it out, look on it, and say, well, yes,
we need to take it another step, and we need to deal with it seriously, and not just putting 2 pages in a book, and then because the level of celebration about that act does not match what was actually done. And I say the Garvey need to be a people-led initiative now. We are waiting on the government too long. The people are strong enough to come together, plan their own thing. Garvey, all that Garvey did not get any support from any government organization, and we need to take the cue from that and know.
But those who occupy a position of leadership must not be let off.
No, none at all.
They are where they are because
and they must be put to the
people like Molemu Marcus Mosiah Garvey. They must recognize and acknowledge those on whose shoulders they stand. Those who are in the Ministry of Culture are standing.
And if they are not competent, they must move out of the way.
Yes, and you can't just go around and call his name in vain, because we hear a lot of that on the stage, on the platforms, on the political pulpits. We hear a lot of that, invoking the name of Molemu Marcus.
It is convenient to quote Marcus Garvey when fighting for a political side.
I noted that in the article by Lance Nita, he also talked about the apathy and said, I think it's tongue-in-cheek that he said this, that, Jamaicans seem to have so much to talk about now and to concentrate on, including the IMF, the World Cup, passing the IMF test, fixing the economy, the runaway dollar, the high cost of living, the looming energy crisis, wanton crime, and the World Cup. And he's saying that there's so much on our plates, but at the same time, we're a complex people. We can do this and that in the 100th year of Molemu Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
There's a lot for us to achieve and a lot for us to move. Despite the World Cup, these are the sidetrack issues. The World Cup, the IMF is not a sidetrack. The IMF is like an arrow piercing us.
It's part of the betrayal of the African people, of the Jamaican people by those in leadership positions. But so, Devon, where do we go from here? Because here we come again, we have identified the problems. We know what they are, we talk about them. I hear you saying that this must be a people-driven initiative.
Yes. And in
what
fact,
would you have people do?
In fact, on Thursday, we want to start that process at Jackie Root's place on Milford Road, Thursday evening at 6. We want to have a panel discussion and reasoning to look at where we go in terms of Garvey. We look at Coral Gardens, where we are not getting anywhere with that, and the whole African liberation. So we want Bridging to come. We have to come together, Angela. Government is not going to help us. Government think about Blenheim and Roxborough. They don't even think about Paul Bogle, Sam Sharp and the others. It's just two persons that they look at. So we want the brethren to come together. We have the Marcus Garvey Children in Discovery Bay. That's another project we want to look at. Those children who march with you on the Garvey
every
Day.
year.
Every year. Yes. Those children need uniform. You know, Garvey love to see the color, and you need to be well put together. And so we want to see if we can start an initiative to get him some uniforms.
So all of this will be discussed on Thursday. Where?
At Jackie Roots Place, just above the Otrius High School on Milford Road there.
So people know, you said Jackie Roots Place, but I didn't know Jackie Roots is a place there.
Yes, it's just over. I think above the Adventist Church, and you just go through the gate above the Adventist Church where
that's on Milford. You're passing the Otrius High School?
Yes.
All right, and you continue up on
that. Where Campbell's Mechanical Enterprise used to be.
So on Thursday, what time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
So we want bridges, because we have to start this. It's 100. We are going to the middle of the year and nothing. Remember, early in the year, I called Bridget, I say, I'll give my number publicly. I say, call me, tell us what's happening.
And one of the things that you did was that when you came in here, you said, let us do this, use a joined up approach to do this.
Yes.
For everybody who's doing anything to do with Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey.
We are not excluding the politicians, the mayor, the MP, anybody come together and let us do something.
In this 100th year of Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey. At this time as we speak, we do not know what is planned, but in the bottom line this morning, we're going to hear what Senator Norman Grant has said about the plans for emancipation celebrations. He hasn't said anything, and I'm saying him because he made a declaration that will shock you to the core if you are African-centered, Pan-African, or just Barnia. You know, the plans that they have and the extent to which they're leaving out the Emancipation Day celebrations, according to him, but also that this is June, 100th year of the UNIA, July 20. Isn't July 20 that day?
14.
The year, July 20. That is in just 15 days, you have to say, nearly. Well, you know, marks the 100 years since the formation of the UNIA, July 20. Right? So that's that's a few days away. There are no plans by the Ministry of Culture to mark that day as we speak today.
No
right?
plans.
Secondly, let us say they're not going to do this in July 20, but they'll do it on August 17. I guarantee you, I have been asking the question, the government does not care to do anything in this 100th year of Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey.
And I support you 100% until they come forward. I will repeat, the government do not care about Marcus Garvey. In fact, they wouldn't mind we forget anything about Marcus Garvey.
Well, we will not forget. We will not forget, and so that we'll continue to talk about it. But we'll also do more than talking. We will do it. You said this must be a people-driven initiative.
Yes.
The only thing about it is that they have no shame, and so they will not be shamed. But
and we are not ruling out public demonstration.
Exactly, and we must not do it just to shame them. We must do it because we need to do it, because we must recognize our ancestor, because we understand the principle of Sankofa, because we understand that it is on Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey's shoulder that we stand today, that we even have a voice in the public as we do. We must do this. So, Devon, Thursday is a gathering.
Yes, a gathering.
At 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then from there, we'll hear much more.
Yeah, we'll hear, because we have to start this process. We cannot allow Garvey, the most revered human being across the world, to be treated in this manner. We have many times we shame visitors coming to us, like those group of visitors that Lance brought here, and they left here feeling totally disappointed. And we as the people need, even if the government is not trying to do, we need to begin to think of going there.
We must do. And once again, I say to all groups that call themselves by the name of Mwalimu Marcus Garvey, I say to all groups that we will not be able to unite, we will not be able to have any kind of revolutionary change, and that might be a misnomer, but we will not be able to achieve anything if the conflict that we have is with ourselves and among ourselves. The conflict must be with the institutions that continue to oppress us. The institutions that will not celebrate Marcus Garvey. The conflict must be with that institutions that are racist and oppressive, not among ourselves. Do not use this space either, the Running African space, to come and air your conflicts. Keep it to yourself. Right? But I'm saying the conflicts must be with the institutions. If the conflicts are with the institutions, let us have a conversation. Get over yourselves. Thank you very much, Devon.
Thank you.
We shall lead the way. Take your bone black, stick to that. Listen up as a matter of fact. I think it's time you understand.
You're inside of the Africa Forum, Running African. Now 7:40, you're inside of the Africa Forum.
When we lose our African connection, we lose our world connection. When we disconnect ourselves from Africa, we cease to be a world people. Without the African connection, we are a disjointed people, begging for the entry into somebody else's house.
Gonna be going into the main interview inside of the program this morning, and we're going to the phone lines to speak with Professor Horace Campbell. We've been talking about this all morning. He has written about Boko Haram. He has written about fundamentalism in Africa, and we want to talk about that within the context of the kidnapping of the young girls from Nigeria. Almost 300 young girls between the ages of 16 and 18 kidnapped, still not found. Sexual slavery, sexual terrorism in the context of a kidnapping of the Nigerian girls, and the menace of Boko Haram and fundamentalism in Africa. The article written by Professor Horace Campbell. Professor Campbell is a veteran Pan-Africanist, professor of African American Studies and Political Science at Syracuse University. He's the author of many texts, numerous texts, and including Global Nature and the Catastrophic Failure in Libya. Of course, you remember that's one of the books that we read inside of the Running African Book Club. He's joining me on the phone lines to talk about the menace of Boko Haram, but also about fundamentalism in Africa, contextualizing this. Standing by to speak with Professor Horace Campbell. All right, as we go to the phone lines to speak with Professor Horace Campbell on the menace of Boko Haram and fundamentalism in Africa. He joins us live. Professor Campbell, good morning. Hotep, welcome to Running African once again.
Good morning to you, and thank you so much for inviting me. And I want to say greetings to all my friends, all my relatives, all my comrades, hailing up Neville and Verna, all the people up in the hills in Blue Mountain there, Richard, all of my friends and comrades. I want to hail them up and say that stay strong and hold that country together.
All right. Well, Professor, I have been reading the article that was published in Counterpoint, and thank you very much for sending that to me. And I've read so much since the kidnapping of the Nigerian girls, but this is one of the first ones that I've read that really put things in perspective. It is the information that was missing, that you wanted to connect the dots, but how do you do that? And I think you did that brilliantly for all of us. I hope that others will be able to read this when we're through. We'll say how you can get to that. So you have situated the kidnapping of the Nigerian girls, Professor Campbell, within a broader context of fundamentalism on the continent of Africa, Nigeria in particular. As you did in the article, can you talk to us a little bit about what that statement meant? Because this is how you started your article, this chilling statement about selling the girls in the market. Before we talk about Boko Haram, what did that statement mean to you when you heard that?
Well, anyone who has been through the experience of enslavement, and those of us who come from the tradition of 500 years of fighting against enslavement, when we see some young boys getting up and saying that they're going to sell other black people, especially women, into slavery, and to say that their religion authorizes it. We sit up and say, where have these people been? What society do they live in? Here we are in Nigeria, in Africa, been fighting for reparations for enslavement. Here we are fighting to end all forms of exploitation, all forms of terrorism and dehumanization. And these young people, calling themselves freedom fighters, getting up and saying, we will sell these girls into slavery. Now, we have to understand, what is it about a society that could create in the minds of young people that kind of dehumanization, that they could go out, kidnap young girls, go out, kill people, bomb people in bus stations, and wantonly destroy society? These are no longer human beings. These are people who have been dehumanized. And in trying to find about this dehumanization, we either say, well, these people are criminals, these people are barbarians, or you find out what is at the root of inspiring them to go about this kind of killing. And I think this brings us to a problem that we face not only in Nigeria, but all over the world, in Jamaica, in Trinidad, in Brazil, in Chicago, where young people go out and kill others wantonly. And I think this should cause all of us to say, no, we must wake up and stop any kind of society and social system that inspire young people to do this kind of killing, kidnapping, and selling people into slavery.
So that in examining this, what do you find? You went as deep as to say unemployment are issues that we need to look at, and we have not heard this conversation at this level. But within the context of this kidnapping, within the context of Nigeria, what were some of those issues that you identified that you found drove this kind of a situation where young men, young women are now in a situation, well, young men are now in a situation where young women are being kidnapped?
Yes. For the young men, this has to do with masculinity. It has to do with the deformation of ideas about what it is to be human and to be men. And this masculinity is deformed in a context of fundamentalism. We're dealing with three kinds of fundamentalism here. The first and most dangerous kind of fundamentalism is market fundamentalism. Market fundamentalism says that the most important thing in society is for companies to make profits, regardless of what happens to other human beings. So if the company is making profits by flaring gas and destroying the environment, as they do, as Shell Oil does in Nigeria, if making profits is bunkering oil, then that's okay. Now, that fundamentalism brings about one kind of terrorism that we have all over the world, that is economic terrorism. Economic terrorism is that terror where people have no way of going about meaningfully valuing their lives and do not have means of employment and livelihood, where 1% of the population live in luxurious wealth. And here we have Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, actually one of the wealthiest countries in Africa, producing oil, and 70% of the people live at abysmal poverty. That is the number one problem in Nigeria, economic terrorism, where people do not have electricity, clean water, access to education, access to decent housing, decent roads, and decent environment. This is the terrorism that's the root of the problem. That gives rise to another terror. That is the terrorism of deformed masculinity, where young people grow up in a society where they are supposed to be breadwinners, and they have no means of realizing their dream of taking care of families. Then we have the second kind of masculine, of deformity in the society, that is called Islamic fundamentalism. Mm-hmm. Now, Islamic fundamentalism is not unique to Islam. We have Christian fundamentalism. We have Jewish fundamentalism. We have Hindu fundamentalism. What unites all of the fundamentalism, Christian, Hindu, Islamic, and economic fundamentalism, is the oppression of women. Mm-hmm. Because women are the root of the life of society, giving life to society and controlling the bodies, the mind, and the womb of women is what all fundamentalists want. So the distortion of Islam, when these young people call themselves Boko Haram, say they will kidnap girls, this is purporting a form of Islam that has nothing to do with religion, because Islam is a religion of peace. Islam, like most religions, come from people trying to find harmony with the universe, with their gods or goddesses. So this is a distortion of Islam. Now, this Islamic fundamentalism comes from a sect in Saudi Arabia called Wahhabism. Yeah. Wahhabism is a conservative, very, very reactionary sect of Islam by those who want to keep the royal family in place, and they have billions of dollars, and they help to finance this branch of Islam all over the world. And so we have, just as in Christianity, we have branches of Christianity. We have Baptists, we have Catholics, we have Anglicans. In Islam, we have different branches. Now, this is one of the most conservative branches. And now, in northern Nigeria, which is particularly blemished because of the conservatism of the ruling class in Nigeria, who have exploited the workers, the poor farmers, the women. We have this group that has risen calling itself Boko Haram, mm-hmm. which was created by politicians in order to divide young people who they did not want to organize to make Nigeria a better society.
I want you to pause for a moment, Professor, because you've said so much there. And it was in reading through your article that I thought to myself that this is a much more complex issue that need to be understood from all these points that you have identified here. You've talked about market fundamentalism. You've talked about economic terrorism. You've talked about the issue of masculine deformity, and so much more. So how, for those who are listening, and in the article, one of the things I really liked is where you quoted from Kiwana, who's now Kiwana, who was just testified in Guyana. By the way, we've spoken about him last week in the Rodney trial. That economic terrorism is a placing of human beings in a situation in which they are without hope, space, adequate defense, means of escape and survival, or means of overcoming actual or threatening danger. Menace or oppressive force is the very definition of terror, which has not only a physical but also a mental element. Now, many persons can identify with that right here in Jamaica. All right, so let's start there. So my question now is, what made Nigeria so different that we had a Boko Haram? And I hear the different threads and themes that you have identified, such as the masculine deformity. What it is that we need to understand about the patriarchal society, which is Nigeria, that would result in something like a Boko Haram, a terrorist group like a Boko Haram?
Well, thank you for making reference to Yusuf Kwayana, because he's one of the inspiration behind our movement. He is someone who inspired Walter Rodney. He's close to 90 years old now, and he is still in the fight against terrorism. And he inspired me to understand economic terrorism, which he says not only has a physical aspect, but a mental aspect. And we have that terrorism in Jamaica. They have that terrorism in Trinidad. In all societies where you confuse young people so they do not see the source of their exploitation. Now, we must understand what Nigeria is to the African people. Nigeria is potentially the leading force in a unified Africa. Nearly 200 million Africans. In 20 years, Nigeria will have 300 million people. Nigeria is very rich, and there is a tradition of fighting for decency for well-being in Nigeria that is led by a Nigerian woman. If you know anything about West Africa, you know about the tenacity, the zeal, and the energy of Nigerian and West African women. These women led the struggle for independence and had a major strike in 1929. All patriarchs, all masculine, all external exploiters fear the organizing of Nigerian women. So the potentialities of Bring Back Our Girls campaign in uniting women across all religions, all ethnic groups, all regions is feared inside and outside of Nigeria, because the Nigerian ruling class is one of the most despicable in Africa. They're despicable because they accumulate wealth to the point where they have houses in New York, London, Switzerland. They're despicable because they accumulate wealth to the point where they have houses in New York, London, Switzerland, and Paris. And Nigeria does not have running water or electricity. It is appalling that after 60 years of producing oil, Nigeria does not have a functioning refinery. Because when you have a refinery, it means that you can produce oil, refine oil, and you can generate multiplier effects within your economy. So the Nigerian ruling class is particularly despicable, although many of them are very proud to be Africans, and you see them having the pride in terms of their dress, in terms of their understanding of their culture, whether they are Yoruba or Igbo. Nigerians are one of the African peoples who are very strong about African culture and languages and so forth. But that ruling class that send their children to school in London and to New York and to Syracuse, that ruling class despise the mass of Nigerian people, just like the Jamaican ruling class. So the challenge for us outside of Nigeria, how do we connect and support an organization such as Bring Back Our Girls, so that we refuse to be brought into the dehumanizing of Nigeria by talking about tribalism and that this is Christians against Muslims. This is a function, in our view, of the real forms of exploitation and the distortion of Islam.
And you had said earlier that here is a group, Boko Haram, that was initially sponsored, and this is a word that you use in the article also, sponsored. Can we talk about the origin then of Boko Haram?
Boko Haram. Yes. Well, I am not sure of the origin, because this group emerged after the military dictatorship. And we must understand the things that the Boko Haram are doing had been done by the military dictatorship. That is, kidnapping people, assassinating people. And you remember Ken Saro-Wiwa, who was protesting against the destruction of the Niger Delta. He was killed by General Abacha. Now, when the military was removed from power, and the military was removed from power because there was a massive democratic movement in Nigeria. This movement was called the June 12th movement. And from the 1980s, protesting against General Babangida, then General Abacha, there was a new political fervor growing in Nigeria where it was politicizing young people. Now, when the military government was removed, and it was removed precisely because that democratic force arose among the population, and it arose regardless of region, north, south, east, west, Christian and Muslim. It was very powerful in Nigeria. We had a form of democracy in Nigeria that is based on voting. I say this, a form of democracy, because real democracy in countries such as Jamaica and Nigeria and Trinidad uses the wealth of the society to give people life, health, water, housing. This form of democracy that they introduced to Nigeria, as they have in Jamaica, is called voting, and they vote once every 4 or 5 years. And this voting just presents the competition between different sections of those who have money. in the case of Nigeria, they came up with something called zoning. That is, the political power should go between the north and the south. And because there was a man called Obasanjo, Olusegun Obasanjo, who was the president after 1999 when Nigeria returned to civilian rule. From 1999 to 2007, we had Obasanjo. In 2002, Boko Haram arose in the north among politicians who felt that they should use this as an instrument to pressure the government about remembering this zoning. Now, in 2009, when President Yar'Adua came to power, they killed the leader of Boko Haram. This man was called Yusuf. And we want to say something about this President Yar'Adua because he came from the north. He came from Katsina. And for those listeners who know about the Pan-African movement, this is the state that Tajuddin Abdul Rahim come from. Tajuddin Abdul Rahim is from Funtua in that state, and he is one of the great Pan-African freedom fighters who's buried there. And it is the teachings of Tajuddin that they fear. They fear the idea that Nigeria is going to be unified in a unified Africa where the wealth of Nigeria is going to reconstruct Nigeria for houses, schools, parks, and for a different society. So the politicians who steal the money spent money in providing for this group called Boko Haram, who said the power must go back to the north. And since 2009 and 2010, when Goodluck Jonathan came to power, and Goodluck Jonathan came from the south, we saw the rise of Boko Haram. But let us not just criticize the north, because all politicians in Nigeria use militia groups. They have not just Boko Haram, they have cults. They have Christian cults who deal with all kind of devious and deformed activities. So let us not just stigmatize the North with this problem of how the exploitation of Nigeria manifests itself within the body politics of Nigeria.
So that if we are to understand, and there have been many conversations, we had a caller this morning, Garnet, referring to the admission that Boko Haram is an element of Al Qaeda and so on. What if we are to understand this? It seems to me as if you're saying to us that no, it can't be at that simple level. It can't be a linear thinking. We must be able to see Nigeria, the body politic, as you say, from a more complex perspective. How do we understand this outside of, well, here, what we hear in France, with that quickly, trumped up meeting talking about, this is now an Al Qaeda problem and Boko Haram is Al Qaeda. How do we understand all of that?
Yes. Do you remember when the women were protesting against the kidnapping of the girls?
Yes.
And we heard that the wife of the president ordered the people who were protesting to be arrested?
Yes.
You remember that?
Of course.
It means that for the political leadership of Nigeria, their stay in power is more important than the well-being of the girls. The corruption of the political system that I'm speaking about is of dimensions that one really have to understand the wealth of Nigeria to understand the depth of the corruption. Nigeria has an army of over 200,000 persons. Many of the people in the army do not have the ordnance, the weapons, the equipment because of the corruption where the money, more than 20% of the budget of Nigeria goes to security, but the resources are not there. Now, for many people in the West, especially in France, in Britain, United States, and Canada, they want to put this one form of terrorism, that is Islamic fundamentalism and Al-Qaeda, because it feeds into the hype to frighten Western people about a global war on terror. We don't know what this thing called Al-Qaeda is. The same people who are fighting Al-Qaeda are the same people who finance and sponsor Al-Qaeda. France is sponsoring terrorists in Syria. they sponsor the same terrorists in Libya, as we pointed out in our book, Global NATO and the Catastrophic Failure in Libya. So this thing called Al-Qaeda is the same kind of manipulation where the United States went in and financed Osama bin Laden until he was no longer useful to them. That is what is going on all over the world, what is called terrorism. We have a real problem of young men who are deformed at the mental level and who are manipulated by outside people. Now, for many years, the Nigerian army, who do not want the country to divide it because they suffered in 1967 to 1970 when the country was divided and over 3 million people were killed. The progressive Nigerians made a pledge that their country would never be divided again. Now, France is afraid of Nigeria. They want to make sure that Nigeria is divided because Nigeria would be and will be one of the most powerful countries in Africa. If you want to see the potential of the power of Nigeria, look at their film industry. Look at their art and their culture, because Nigerian film and art shows what will happen when Nigeria explodes. Now, the United States government wanted to brand Boko Haram a terrorist organization, but the Nigerian government resisted because they say this is an internal situation. But for the past 2 years, the situation has gotten out of hand. It's just unspeakable, the kind of bombings and killings that you hear of every day. And the entire political leadership in Nigeria is responsible for this situation, because there are many decent people in Nigeria who want to get rid of Boko Haram. But as some people have said, the government know who these people are. The military in Nigeria say, we know where the girls are, but we don't want to be able to harm them. So this is something that requires international collaboration in support of the women, not in support of the governments. In other words, those governments of the United States, France, Britain, and Canada wants to go into Nigeria. We must support the efforts of the women. In fact, one of the things we've been talking about in the Pan-African movement, which we should have a big peace march of 1 million women to go and free those women, finding non-military means, because we said every one of those boys who in Boko Haram have mothers and aunties, and they should be the ones we get to say, speak to your children, get them out of the trap of these people who are manipulating them to go out and say they're selling their brothers and sisters into slavery, and they go into the park and kill their brothers and sisters.
I'm going to take a quick break, Professor. Please hold the line, because I can hear the questions, and I see some coming in by Twitter and so on about whether or not Boko Haram then is a terrorist group, whether or not Boko Haram is really connected to Al-Qaeda, or is it a homegrown group that is responding to all these different elements of terrorism in Nigeria and has no connection with Al-Qaeda in your perspective. All right, quick break and we'll be right back. 8 minutes now after 8 o'clock. You're inside of the Africa Forum, Running Africa, and we're speaking with my very special guest who is on the phone lines, Professor Horace Campbell, talking about the menace of Boko Haram and fundamentalism in Africa. Professor, just before we went to the break, I'd kind of just paraphrase some of the questions I see coming in from the social media. People are asking generally, what are your thoughts on this connection to Al-Qaeda? Do you think they're really connected to Al-Qaeda, that is Boko Haram? And if not, then why say so?
Okay. Well, the Boko Haram, from what we've understood from all the writings, and we must understand that this is a moving target, that this thing started within the body politic of Nigeria, but since the NATO intervention in Libya in 2011, there's been a spread of Islamic movements in that region, in Mali, spread of weapons, because the West supported the jihadists. The people who they call Al-Qaeda, they supported them in Libya. And those people have weapons that have moved all over West Africa. So we must understand that this beast that is called Al-Qaeda, we must see that this is opportunism and manipulation. Now, the situation has been internationalized. So if Boko Haram is homegrown. Clearly, they have people who now want to benefit from the publicity, because this publicity about selling the girls has catapulted Boko Haram into an international, as they call in the West, terrorist organization, because they have crossed international borders, crossing into Cameroon, into Niger, and into Chad. So the situation of having connections with groups outside of their own region in northern Nigeria is something that is developing. And it's developing because of opportunism in the context of the massive publicity that they've gotten from saying that they're going to sell young girls into slavery.
Sell young girls into slavery. Those girls, Professor Campbell, have still not been found. You just mentioned, and the Nigerian government has been saying it, they know where they are, they don't want to go and hurt them. But what is your thinking on this? Why has it been so difficult? How do you contextualize the delayed response of the Nigerian government to the situation? And do you think that these girls, almost 300 of them, will be brought home?
Well, even if and when they're brought home, you must imagine the trauma that they have been through to be kidnapped and the kind of sexual terrorism that they're undergoing at the present moment. Because anyone who say that they can sell girls into slavery have no qualms about terrorizing them sexually. The delayed response of the Nigerian government is what is very troubling, and this is the need for intensifying the pressure on the Nigerian government by supporting the organization called Bring Back Our Girls, because it is going to depend on the women in Nigeria to develop forms of politics, not just in relationship to Boko Haram, but in relationship to just the rot in society. That how do you go and bomb a parking lot in Abuja, a bus station, and kill 69 people? They're just making life unbearable. So the situation in Boko Haram is tied to the general insecurity for the majority of Nigerians. If there are 180 million Nigerians, there for majority, 150 million Nigerians, life is insecure. So we have to talk about how is it that Nigeria is brought into peace and reconstruction, and you definitely need a new mode of politics. So it's not just a short-term question of bringing back Boko Haram, it's a medium-term question of a new kind of politics. And the women in Nigeria have done it before in 1929, when they have said, if the Nigerian woman went on strike, and they would say, no food, no water, no nurturing, no sex. The women have the most powerful weapon to go on strike in Nigeria. And that is why we see the intervention of women as having a major turning point if they can consolidate their organizational capacity and intensify their international network so that grassroots women come to the forefront of this struggle against Boko Haram.
And yet and yet in the article you also talk about how some of these movements over the years led by women have been co-opted by women, wives of presidents, for example.
Precisely. And that is why we have to speak about the non-violent, the new forms of political organizing, because one of the things that happened in Nigeria all over the world, when you see women starting to organize, they go out and put women as the leaders. They put women up who will reinforce the same economic terrorism, with the women who will stand silent where other men put guns into hands of men to shoot on other people, and those women keep silent. So we have to see how the wife of General Babangida tried to co-opt women, and one of the big things about what they call international NGOs is to tap into the energies of women so women do not organize for the new politics. And all over the world, whether it's in Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, Guyana, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, we need a new form of politics. This politics, which is based on voting every 5 years, is not taking us anywhere. It's not changing the structural conditions of economic terrorism.
Professor, with just a few minutes to go inside of this this segment of the program, I want to talk about the amassing of the military, Nigeria, France, USA, France, AFRICOM. I want to talk about how do you... It seemed Nigeria recently, we heard, said to the United States, we do not want, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, we do not want AFRICOM headquartered, for example, in Nigeria. But now...
Or Africa.
Sorry?
Or Africa.
Or Africa. What does the call and the reaching out to the international community, the conference or the sit down as it was in France, and the sending of 100 military people? Now we're hearing about the training of the Nigerian army. The presence of France and AFRICOM in that area, not just Nigeria, Niger, Chad, Mali, and so on, as a result of the kidnapping of the girls and the internationalization of this problem. How does that affect the militarization of that entire region, the continued militarization of that entire region?
What we as Pan-Africanists are ashamed of is the fact that it took the calling of the French president for the president of the Cameroon or Chad or Niger to say we are going to collaborate with our brothers and sisters in Nigeria to solve this problem. We are ashamed of that because as Pan-Africanists, we believe that what happens to our brothers and sisters in any part of the African world should be our concern. So Pan-Africans should not wait until France calls any meeting to solve the Boko Haram question. We must understand that the Nigerian army is very proud. We have, as I said, over 200,000 men and women in the Nigerian armed forces. The Nigerian army brought peace in Sierra Leone, in Liberia. They have a track record of being able to solve problems in Africa. This is an expedient to give France a foothold in this region. And the Nigerian army is very upset about it, to the point where some people are talking about a military coup d'etat in Nigeria to clean up the politics. We shudder at the thought of a military coup d'etat in Nigeria because it would set back the entire African continent, because no military government can solve the problems of economic terrorism in Nigeria. But the handling of this problem by the political class in Nigeria, and the political class not only includes the present president, but the opposition and all the governors who use the wealth of Nigeria to send outside. We need to concentrate on how to change the politics of Nigeria, not just the present political leadership.
And the problem of Nigeria is an African problem, isn't it? To what extent does Nigeria differ? As you talk about earlier, you mentioned that, listen, it's not just Islamic fundamentalism. We're talking about Christian fundamentalism. We hear about, this war on Joseph Kony forever. That's going. I've never seen anything like this in my life. This whole Joseph.
Well, just think about it. This thing about AFRICOM is a joke. Because the United States will send 100 troops to help train 200,000 Nigerian soldiers. They've sent in Uganda for the past 5 years 100 troops to try and find a ragtag groups of 200 people. When the United States have the best electronic surveillance in the world, it is a joke. This is a way of keeping Africa in the eyes of instability, to project Africa as unstable. Many people are talking about the United States remilitarization of Africa, and they talk about the United States having 4,000 troops in Djibouti, the United States have 1,000 troops in 100 troops, but in Uganda, and trading all over Africa. We should not forget that Africa has over 1 billion persons. All of Africa do not want French and U.S. troops in Africa, because those are the countries that killed Patrice Lumumba, helped to incarcerate Nelson Mandela, supported apartheid, helped to keep Jonas Savimbi, and now they killed Muammar Gaddafi. The structural conditions of the African people, where they're impoverished, where the wealth of Africa, the gold, the diamonds, the oil, the coffee, goes outside to other people, are the conditions that need change. And that's why the Pan-African movement is focusing on the unification of Africa. Pan-African movement is focusing on the rights of the African people, women, youth, men, and the reconstruction of Africa. And this Boko Haram is a tool in the hands of northern oligarchs and external forces who do not want to see the reconstruction of Africa.
We have a lot of work to do. One of the things that you have done in this article, and this brings our attention back to Jamaica, back to the Caribbean. You have been making that connection throughout the program as you go out. This understanding what economic terrorism is and what lessons can Jamaica learn, if any, from Africa, from Nigeria in particular, and the response of young men in Nigeria to economic terrorism. Any lessons in that for us, Professor?
Oh, many lessons. Jamaica is a very rich and very youthful, very energetic society. And what they've done in Jamaica is turn young people against each other. We have these tribes that have been created in Jamaica based on political parties. These tribes have oligarchs that put guns in the hands of young people, and you have no-go areas. And in these no-go areas, the lives of all of the working people are affected. So you cannot do trade union organizing, you cannot do community organizing, you cannot do church organizing in these communities. And these gun persons who are paid by political activists in the society terrorize communities. And so you have, if you have in a place like Jamaica, a place like Flanker, which is a place populated by guns, and just down the road, you have tourists, and tourists are unsure, and they can walk about freely, and the tourists are not affected, but the working class communities are affected. So all over Jamaica, the working class communities are affected by this level of gun violence. And I've seen my own friends being shot down and killed because of this inhumanity, this dehumanization that is caused by the politicians. And we cannot. Then I have friends in Jamaica because I grew up in Jamaica, and I cannot sit with people who are known to have friends who are politicians who put money in the hands of people to kill each other. I cannot sit down at social events. So I have great difficulty because not only since I was growing up, I can never sit down with men who talk about the body parts of women. I cannot sit down with men who dehumanize women. I cannot sit down with men who demonize homosexuals. So I cannot sit down with people who also put money in the hands of young people to kill each other. So each of us have to draw a line in terms of our social life about this terrorism which goes on in our communities. How could you kill 70 people in Tivoli and we do not have a real inquiry into it? Just as how after 34 years, we are having an inquiry into the assassination of Walter Rodney. We want to ensure that Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana is changed from this thing of having young people going out to kill other people.
Professor, well said. We're not going to add anything to that. We just want to invite you to come into Jamaica in August for our Marcus Garvey celebrations, because I think that we need you here. We're going to talk to you off the phone on that and send you a note and so on. I think that we must continue these conversations. We must have this discussion, and we must have it at many, many different levels. Thank you very much, Professor Harris Campbell, as usual.
Thank you, and greetings to everybody, and let all of those who follow the teachings of Marcus Garvey about the unification, the freedom and independence of Africa focus not just on blackness, but on being good human beings.
Thank you very much, Professor Harris Campbell.
What you wanted us to be.
Professor Harris Campbell there.
We are what we are.
Veteran, Pan-Africanist, Professor of African American Studies and Political Science at Syracuse University. Author of Global NATO and the Catastrophic Failure in Libya. One of the books we read in the Running African Book Club, you'll remember. Much more to know, much more to learn. He talks about economic terrorism. It's something that we have to pay some attention to ourselves here in Jamaica. Attacks on masculine pride, attack on women, the continued tribalizing of a people. Once again, to go to UC, Kheru, who talks about economic terrorism, explaining what it is. He says economic terrorism is a placing of human beings in a situation in which they are without hope, without space, without adequate defense, without a means of escape and survival, or means of overcoming actual or threatening danger. Menace or oppressive force is the very definition of terror, which has not only a physical but also a mental element. This is our condition here in Jamaica, and we must call it what it is: economic terrorism. And whether you want to link it with Al-Qaeda, that is your business, but we are linking it to those who continue to betray the people, especially the masses of the Jamaican people, who are the African people in Jamaica. The poor continue to suffer from the terrorism of the structural adjustment policies of the IMF, of the World Bank, of the selling out and the giving away of our land to China without consultation, without thought of tomorrow and the tomorrow people who are our own people, our own children. So this is economic terrorism. And if it is that we're going to have to rebel, we must give history a revolutionary push. We must do what we have to do. We've been trotting on the wine press for too long, for much too long.
Babylon system is the vampire.
I want to make something very clear. I want to make something very clear about where the campaign to bring back our girls started. It started right here, on this program, guided by Nana Erna Brodba. It started here, okay? We've been trotting on the wine press much too long. All right, time on IRFM, 8:30. Time now for the cash pot draw. Now 8:34. It's time now for Kanako Brasilia with Roger Hasfall.
It's Kanako Brasilia, a look at the African teams at football's ultimate showpiece. I'm Roger Hasfall. Ghana is in the pressure cooker group G, where it plays the United States in its opening match on June 16. The Black Stars then face Germany on June 21. Ghana then finish up by playing Portugal on June 26. The Black Star plays with tactical flexibility, meaning it can line up a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 or even 4-4-2. Ghana will play fast counter-attacking football, but a shaky defense could be its downfall. Kevin Prince Boateng will come face-to-face with his brother Jerome Boateng when Ghana meets Germany in their second group game, and he's hoping it will be one of two times.
It's like a Champions League, you know, anything can happen. Every team can beat every team. Like, it just depends who makes less mistakes. And we proved, even in 2010, that we can challenge the big teams. And I think we're even stronger than 2010. I really believe in this team. I believe in the Black Stars. We have, like, the perfect mix between young and old players, experienced players. And I think it's about time that the African countries set their mark in the world.
A Ghanaian run to the semi-finals or beyond in 2014 would be spiritual justice after the last tournament, but in a group this tough, anything can happen. Cameroon is in Group A, which is harder than it looks. An opening game against Mexico on June 13 will be more difficult than any can imagine, and Croatia on June 18 won't be much easier. Cameroonian fans will hope that when the indomitable Lions meet Brazil on June 23, the host will already be through and won't try too hard. Cameroon's formation is pretty fluid, but is best described as 4-4-2. Cameroon's Samuel Eto'o may not be the ruthless finisher he once was, but he's still the team's focal point, while Alex Song of Barcelona will serve as deep line playmaker. Song spoke glowingly about German coach Volker Finke as well as his team's chances.
I think we have a lot of opportunities to have the guy like him. He did very well at the moment. We are in the new process because it's new managers coming. He wants us to do something new, and at the moment we are the good, and he's a good guy. He knows what he wants. I know we have good team and young team, and we have some players like Samuel, the old players like Samuel have good experiences, can help US to achieve something there.
Seven-time qualifiers Cameroon is unlucky to be in such a difficult group, but perhaps Nigeria is in Group F. It opened its World Cup campaign against Iran on June 16. Nigeria then lines up against first-timers Bosnia and Herzegovina on June 21. Nigeria will be hoping Argentina will be through to the second round by the time those two play on June 25. A cross between 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3 formations, the Super Eagles has varied its approaches, sometimes pressing and sometimes sitting back. Fenerbahce's Emmanuel Emeniki will offer pace and power up front, while Chivas' Victor Obina also has a good record for the national team. In midfield, Victor Moses will add width, while Chelsea's veteran John Obi Mikel will hold down the center, playing simple passes. The defense is young, but has a large number of caps. Middlesbrough's Kenneth Omeru is only 20, but has played for the national team almost 20 times. Celtic's Ife Ambrose will play alongside Monaco's Ellison. And in the net, it's Lille's Vincent Enyima, a decent shot stopper who is also phenomenal at taking penalties. He could be a double hero in a shootout. Nigeria is in an easy-ish group, though beating Bosnia to get second place is a tough task, but could make a run. Algeria is in Group H, which is one of the more evenly matched groups at the World Cup. Its first match against Belgium on June 17 is its hardest. There's slightly more hope against South Korea on June 22 and Russia on June 26, but not much. The Desert Foxes play mostly 4-4-1-1 formation with lots of players behind the ball. The man most likely to make something happen is Valencia's Sofiane Feghouli, an attacking midfielder, comfortable playing out wide or in the middle. One of La Liga's most underrated players, he's kept his club ticking after the departures of Spanish stars David Silva, Juan Mata and Roberto Soldado.
We are the underdogs, the team on which nobody would bet. We are a young and inexperienced team. We will fight and there is nothing to lose. We need to play with a free mind. And hopefully we'll have a good World Cup.
And the Ivory Coast has some unfinished business to do in Brazil. After early exits in 2006 and 2010, the going should be more comfortable for the Elephants this time around. They have been placed in Group C alongside Colombia, Greece and Japan. They should be confident that they can make it third time lucky in progressing through to the knockout stages. Much of the expectation lies heavily on the shoulders of former Chelsea superstar Didier Drogba. He is his country's all-time record goal scorer and someone whom his teammates will look upon to lead the way into the second round.
My World Cup dream is to play the final in Rio, to win it, and to bring the cup to my country. We are a small country on the football planet, but we have a lot of talented players, so it's time for us, I think, to show it. I'm a dreamer. The same way I was dreaming of lifting a Champions League when I was 16 or 17 and watching all the games on TV. It's the same way I've been dreaming of lifting a World Cup since the first time I saw Maradona holding it in his hand. You know, there's nothing bad about dreaming, so I keep on dreaming again.
Aside from Drogba, Ivory Coast harbors some extremely talented players, among them Manchester City's battering ram Yaya Toure and Gervinho, who has set the Serie A alight with Roma this season. Ivory Coast have avoided a group of death this time around, but while they face a mightily difficult second-round tie, it is hoped that Drogba can help to muscle his side through to the quarterfinals and beyond. That was Kheru, Brasilia today, a look at the African teams at football's ultimate showpiece. I'm Roger Haspel.
Thank you very much, Roger Haspel. It sounds exciting, doesn't it? Football's ultimate showpiece in Brazil, Kheru, Brasilia. Of course, Kheru meaning it is time. So it's time for Brazil. And Ivory Coast looking pretty good in terms of the players. And I was saying this to Roger last week that, you know, individually, each player, a lot of the Yaya Toure, Didier Drogba and so on, it's looking, there's a team that looks like it should win. But we're hearing criticisms about the way players play selfishly on the Ivory Coast team. There's also Nigeria, and of course Nigeria expecting to do well there. Kheru, Brasilia brought to you courtesy of Total Tools, now open in Kingston, 34 Slipe Road, and Bounce Out Party and Furniture Store, Turtle River Plaza, Otrias. Thank you very much. Total Tools, now open in Kingston, 34 Slipe Road, and Bounce Out Party and Furniture Store, Turtle River Plaza in Otrias. Lanagay Green is standing by with the local and international headlines coming up in a little while. Now, 8:44. How are you doing, Mr. Wade Brown?
I am doing great. World Cup time.
Yes, isn't it though? Can we actually say World Cup?
Yes. It's not a feature.
just driving. Right, so Kheru, Brasilia. So you're heading to Brazil?
I would love to be there. Trust me, I would love to be there.
Yes. How is it looking to you in terms of the teams going in and the top teams, the four top teams?
Well, you know, I'm Argentina through and through, but Brazil and Spain, they're really, really looking good.
Okay.
Really looking good.
That's three? Argentina, Brazil, Spain?
Germany would be the fourth to me, but the German team, they're having some injury problems because Royce is injured, and I don't know, because just having some form of injuries in the camp, and I don't see them repeating what they did last time around. So I'm not putting them on the same level as Brazil or Spain right now.
What about Holland?
Dutch team, you know, the funny thing is, I don't see. They could go to the quarterfinals, but it depends on who they meet, because they're in a group with Spain and Chile, and for some reason, I see Chile coming out of that group with Spain. So
really?
Yes, I don't know. I just feel like
I wouldn't have thought so, but then I'm not. I feel it.
It's a tough group. Group B.
You're just feeling it. It's a gut feeling.
Yes.
Well, I remember that you said that.
Chile's going to cause some problems.
Okay. And then we're looking here at the African teams. I still haven't decided. I know Algeria. I'm not with Algeria at all. I'm really not with Algeria. And before anybody say anything, you know, I normally carry Egypt.
Egypt, well...
Right, I normally carry Egypt, but Egypt not there. So,
you can join my team, Nigeria, the Super Eagles.
Yes. Well, yes. I think for me, it's a toss-up now between... What do you say? I have a soft spot for the black stars.
Ghana?
Yes. But so it may have a problem. I'll go with anyone apart from Algeria. You know,
Ghana, they're in a very, very interesting group, because with Germany and Portugal... I don't see Portugal being as strong as some people think they are, so I don't know if Ghana could maybe take their spot. Or maybe even Germany, they could be up for the picking right now, because with Royce being injured, I think yesterday or the day before, who knows.
But you think Nigeria is strong?
I think Nigeria, the thing is, they're in a group with Argentina, which is my team, but
okay,
Bosnia is is a surprise team in that group because they have some good players like I think Dzeko at Man City. So who knows? But if Nigeria they get their act together, they could take it. True.
Well, it's really exciting times, and it's just 2 days? How far away from it? 3 days? Thursday, yeah, just a few days from the whole thing. Well, we'll watch it where we can.
And Messi takes it in Brazil. My God.
Because this is what I'm saying. I've said that I don't. To me, I can't see Brazil losing. But then, at the end of the day, football is what it is.
Yes, definitely.
So, well, let's see. It'll be good if they win. but the World Cup has been in Brazil before. Did Brazil win?
On home side, I think they did. Let's see, which year was that? I know they lost to Uruguay. And on home soil, which led them to change the national colours, the team colours, to the canary yellow and blue we have right now. I can't remember the last.
The very first World Cup, was it played in Brazil? The very first World Cup.
Check. I can't remember the exact.
Okay, well,
location.
If you can't remember, I wouldn't even venture. Because I was going to say I thought it was played in Brazil.
I don't remember. But
remember, no, you never born it.
It's not like Roger, he was around it.
Oh, Roger the born.
Yeah, Roger was there.
Okay. Well, what year was it?
The first World Cup, 19. Well, putting me in a tough spot. Showing my age right now.
No, just find it, man, and tell me. Cause just Google it.
Yes,
you want to computer.
Right, no.
But I think it was played in Brazil. Anyway, another big thing happening today. It's Montreal. Yes. You spell Montreal, right?
Montreal, yeah, but I'm telling you, your boy's not going to win. Mark my words. Not going to win today. Mark my words.
Why are you attacking me so much? He's going to win. He's very comfortable with. He says that he really is very comfortable. Rosberg is on pole, and that's fine.
Yes.
The rivalry heats up. They said they are still friends, and
I don't believe they are.
I don't believe they are either. But Hamilton really, is in fine form. Well, Mercedes is in fine form generally, but Hamilton is in really, really good form. Such is Rosberg. I think this is going to be a very, very interesting race. I hope nothing happens to any of the two vehicles. That's Rosberg or Hamilton. Vettel might very well just crash out.
No, come on. It was, what was it, third in qualifying?
Is it?
Yes, it was third in qualifying. It was third in qualifying, so I think you might put some
pressure there?
Yes.
No, man. Well, you see, Red Bull is having a serious problem with their cars. You know that?
Yes.
Serious problem. So that's not going to go anywhere. But Hamilton is going to take it home? Team Hamilton?
You won't.
Hashtag.
You won't.
Hashtag Team Lewis Hamilton.
You won't.
Hashtag Montreal deal.
I'm telling you,
real deal.
My words, you won't take it on.
So Canada is a place today. It's going to be really exciting. Yes.
The first World Cup was in 1930, it seems.
1930.
Roger was around.
Roger was around? Yes, that's what Roger says. Yeah.
Uruguay.
All right, we know he was it. I said it was in 1930. And where was it?
Uruguay.
It was in Uruguay?
Yes.
And who played?
We had, let's see. There were how many teams in that? 13 teams. 7 from South America, 4 from Europe, 2 from North America.
Oh,
yeah.
A handful of teams.
Yes.
Did Brazil play?
It seems they did. Let's see.
The final was between Brazil and Uruguay. Why do I think that Brazil was in the I don't know. Anyway, I don't know that much. Don't know where I'm going with this. But
it says Argentina, Uruguay, US, Yugoslavia. I'm seeing. No, Uruguay beat Argentina in the final, it seems, to become the first nation to win the World Cup. So Brazil wasn't in that final.
So Uruguay was the first nation to win the World Cup. Okay, and they won at home.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, so now it's Brazil
and they
at home.
Argentina is going to take it on Brazilian soil, and the world will have to hail Lionel Messi.
So do you? You've been fighting for that for a long time. You're still on that track?
No, he's a second best player I've seen in my lifetime.
Okay.
Yes, and he deserves some credit.
All right. So and the goal difference?
The goal difference. I mean, in terms of him scoring, maybe 5 goals.
Okay.
Yeah, because. If they play him as a false 9, he could score more, but I'm not certain they're going to play him like what they're playing at Barcelona, so he should be playing more as a number 10 which is creating chances and controlling the tempo. So maybe 4 or 5 goals.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Wade Brown. We're keeping an eye on that one. Well, good, my brother.
Yes, thanks.
All right. So Wade Brown there with IRFM Sunday Sports Diary. Let me quickly remind you that in the IRFM book club, we're reading from Hilary Beckles, and the book we're reading is Britain's Black Debt: Reparations for Caribbean Slavery and Native Genocide. So we're still reading that book, Britain's Black Debt by Hilary Beckles. Reparations for Caribbean Slavery and Native Genocide. That's a book we're reading. Try and get your copy, read with us, because once we're through, we hope to do a detailed, in-depth interview with Hilary Beckles. 3 minutes now after 9 o'clock, and we're going to be going to the phone lines to speak with the Director of Culture in Education in the Ministry of Education, Amina Blackwood Meeks, who will be speaking on the upcoming launch of the Cultural Agencies Association. I think that's what it is, but she'll correct me if it's not, in Jamaica, and that is scheduled for very soon. So we're standing by to speak with Amina Blackwood Meeks. Right after that, we're speaking with Fufie Akan Princess about the Taino celebrations coming up in Charlestown as part of the wider Maroon celebration that happens annually in Charlestown. Joining me on the phone lines now, Amina Blackwood Meeks. Amina, my sister, good morning.
Sister, good morning. How are you?
I am well, if you two are well.
Yes, Ubuntu.
Yes. I mean, interesting. I got it right? The launch of the Cultural Agencies Association?
Culture Agents Association.
Oh, Culture Agents.
Right. So let us look at a little context now.
Yes.
Many of us agree on the importance of culture to who we are. Mm-hmm. And yet we have such diverse interpretations of culture, which is not to say that any of those interpretations is incorrect. Mm-hmm. You have a piece, I have a piece, we have different mandates. Mm-hmm. And yet we're all trying to raise our children and to raise Jamaica in a certain way. Mm-hmm. That's one part of the context. Mm-hmm. The other part of the context is that the Ministry of Education has a program called the Culture in Education Program. Mm-hmm. And in each school, there ought to be a teacher who is the culture agent, mm-hmm. who relates to the desk in the ministry on very important programs like Jamaica Day, like the Marcus Garvey program, and so on. Mm-hmm. In the course of doing their work, they listen to Andrea on a Sunday morning, the University of the Running African. That's so nice, not true?
Yes, yes, my sister Amina Wanjiro.
Yes.
Yes.
In the course of doing their work, they listen to other respected voices in the field of culture and national identity. Rupert Lewis, they interface with the ACIJ and so on. Mm-hmm. And so now we want to say, how do we all come together so that at least when we are interfacing on one project, we are all carrying the same message. Mm-hmm. Many voices, but the same message.
And when you say how do we all come together? Because you identified the culture agent in the school.
Right. And then I spoke about individuals like yourself and Professor Lewis. And then agencies such as the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica.
Yes.
So we want to inform and educate and keep each other motivated. So we can see where we're going. We can set targets. Mm-hmm. So you don't just call Amina and say, how the program going? Yes. Because then it's not just one person who is responsible for how the program going, but all of us holding hands to take whatever the program is to the same place.
I think it's a brilliant move. I mean, yes, I think it's really, really good, because what it does, it allows for a clear communication path among and between or the different stakeholders. We now forget and spell and each other and what this person is doing, and then the disjointed approach, I think.
Or hype up on one another, say me know and you know a day.
Exactly, right. And so that this joined up approach, I think, is one of the best ways to go. So great work coming out of the Ministry of Education in facilitating this. So what is going to happen?
So we have 3 levels of membership. Mm-hmm. We have the full members who are the teachers who are designated as culture agents in the schools. Then we have associate members who are those students at Edna Manley, ExEd, teachers' colleges who say, you know what, when I graduate, this is the work I want to do with students. And then we have the affiliate members that we describe as any local, regional, or international individual or group that subscribes to the value of culture in education and wants to assist the teachers to make the programs work.
And you are calling persons together to...
On the 19th of June at the Institute of Jamaica at 9 o'clock in the morning to say yes, make us ratify what we're going to do. And let us fully establish ourselves as the Culture Agents Association of Jamaica. It might not be called that. Yes. People might come with a different kind of name, but that is what we're looking towards. Right. And then we're saying right after we have a launch, can we have a conference on what culture and education means?
I love that.
But we don't set any date. We don't set any date for that.
Yeah, but it's great thinking. But so I mean, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's very early for all these culture agents who are going to come from Negril and from St. Mary.
All right, you're right about that. The actual discussions will start at 11. But there are many people who work in culture who have never visited the Institute of Jamaica.
Yes.
Don't know where the African Caribbean Institute is.
True.
Never been to the National Gallery. Only hear that downtown Kingston is a culture center. So we're saying, those of you who want to come in early and make us take a trip to these places and see what they're all about and see what the resources are and how they could facilitate us educating ourselves to do the work that we want to do.
Okay. And I suppose it seems to me as if the Ministry of Culture will be an integral part of this.
Yes.
Are you working with the Ministry of Culture? I know it's different ministries, education and culture.
We're joining up.
Yes,
we're joining up. So JCDC, all the culture agencies that fall under the Ministry of Culture, of which JCDC is one, ACIJ is one, and so on. The National...
We're losing you there, Amina? Did we just lose you? All right. Amina? All right, I think we're losing her, and I don't know if it's just an out-of-range situation. All right, hang up, Amina, and let us call you right back just to wrap up this conversation on the launch of the Culture Agents Association, which is scheduled for June 19 at the Institute of Jamaica. Speaking with Amina Blackwood-Meeks on that, we'll call her back right after this. 10 minutes now after 9 o'clock. So, Amina, you're back with us?
Yeah, man. So I'm saying in order to ensure that we have fruitful discussions on the 19th and that people are not taken by surprise, we have identified some of the teachers, one per parish, it's complicated, one per parish, one per school type, so that we have the rural and the urban, the primary and the secondary represented, boy and girl principals, who are carrying on the discussion with those groups. So that if every single 1,200, all 1,200 won't come, but if 100 of us meet, that's our target. So 10% of who we are meet, then we can truthfully say, I have consulted the culture agents or agencies in my school type, and this is what they think should be deleted, subtracted, amended, and so on. So we have a document and a shape and form that truly represents where we want to go.
All right. And this is an invitation only, or can persons who are listening?
No, man. Just come. It's our thing. Thank you for that question.
Yes.
If you think you fall in any of the categories, if you're a culture agent in a school, if you're a student at Edna Manley, ExEd, or any of the teachers' colleges, if you are just a person who have an interest in saying, I like that and I want to be a part of it, if you belong to any of the culture agencies and you have not yet been to the Facebook page, which is JACIEP Culture, then please go to the Facebook page, you see the information, and just come to the Institute.
Give us a Facebook page again, that link?
JACIEP JACIEP, which is Jamaica Culture and Education Program, but we also add culture. So it's JACIEP, that's one word, and then culture.
All right. Okay, sounds good. It's the 19th again. It's at the Institute of Jamaica. And
yes,
you're
God bless you.
It starts at 9, the discussion starts at 11. Yes. Thank you very much, Amin. And we're linking with you again to see how it went and then to have a conversation with you as where from now.
How we go forward.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, my sister.
Bless you, my sister.
You too.
And send me the spelling of my new surname. I love it.
Will do.
Well, good.
All right, Amina Wanjira. She says that is spelling of her new surname. This is interesting. All right, 13 after 9 o'clock. When we come back, we'll speak quickly with Fofie.
Running African, reuniting the African family for development.
No, we can't. And we're in Jamaica. We're still unable, no access. Not that we're unable because we can swim, but we still do not have access to a lot of the coastline of Jamaica that we had access to growing up. Public beaches, lands that have been sold off to private interests, and development is what development is. No quarrel with that. But what about access to the sea, access to the water, access to the beach? For persons who travel the world, you travel to Cuba, and it doesn't matter how posh the hotel is that you're staying at, there's always access for the people, access to the beach. Here in Jamaica, we're still fighting. A lucha continua. The struggle continues. Our Victoria is certa, but victory is certain. So we still do not have access to the beach. Last week, the tourism minister announced that there are plans in place, $200,000, and lots of money being thrown at this, and we thought that this was a step in the right direction by itself on paper. We're learning since that really and truly it was just an announcement, not much information to be had, nothing else to be had. We're still waiting to see what the beaches are, where we're also told that one of the things that will be happening that government is looking at, and this is through the Ministry of Tourism, is that there will be attention paid to one beach per parish. For those persons who live on the coast, if you're not in a landlocked parish in Jamaica, you don't know that you have 100 or so beaches. I mean, for those people who live from, say, Portland to Negril. All right, so all of Portland, you've got more beaches than you can count. Government willing to look after one. In St. Mary, don't even go there. Lots of beaches. In St. Anne, wow. So that it begs the question of what exactly is the government, is the Ministry of Tourism hoping to achieve with this announcement? It has not been thought out. Too many questions to be answered in regards to, one, the beaches that are now blocked from the Jamaican public because the hotels occupy the land and have ensured that there is no public access. This is a question that must be answered, and that must be dealt with. As it is right now, if you try to access the beach from the sea, from the other side then, which a hotel can by the sea, so you're coming in on the water, the hotel management or ownership, they have drawn an imaginary line in the sea. And in most of these properties, they have placed a security guard or two. And the security guard is given some kind of baton or whatever it is that they have. And you try coming into, they tell you can't cross that line. And you say to them, which line? And them said, that line there. You can't see the line, because this is a line that only an enslaved person can see. Security guards, most of them are black, very, very black, blue-black. But they're there in the sun. You know, melanin does that. You can stay in the sun for a long time and not get skin cancer, so bless that. And they're telling you, don't cross that line that the hotel magnates have said that you're not to cross, because once you cross that, you're on hotel property. So we need to revisit the Beach Control Act. That's something that NEPA said that they would have been doing. The minister mentioned it in Parliament the other day. Where it goes or where it is going, nobody can tell us. NEPA, we spoke to NEPA, the attorney for NEPA, here on this program a few months ago. She told us that there would be public consultations. We have not heard or seen anything from that. We've been trying all this while to get from NEPA when these public consultations would be. Nobody can tell us. Next thing we heard, an announcement, 1 public beach per parish. Don't make any sense. We're not standing for that. We reject that, actually. And we want immediate attention that have been blocked off and cordoned off by hotels in Jamaica. We want an answer on that. All right? So I do understand that we have had some response from the Ministry of Culture regarding the conversation I had with Devon Evans, and we'll see what the response is. I understand that there was a launch of what was the launch of? We heard in the news just now, Lanagay read that there was a launch of what? Was it Kishiba? What was the launch of? Let me see. Okay. The Jamaica Festival. Okay, so this from a newsroom, the Minister of Youth and Culture, Lisa Hanna, has announced major changes to the annual Jamaica Festival program. We weren't talking about the festival program, which celebrates Emancipation Day and Independence. It's interesting. We're still going to be reading and talking about Senator Norman Grant and what he said. All right, and it's okay. So it was a launch of Jamaica Festival, and it was at the Louis Bennett Garden Theatre. And Minister Hanna said that among the changes, the main changes, is an adjustment to the Jamaica Festival celebration period. Usually Jamaica Festival refers to the week of celebration from July 31 to Independence Day. And Minister Hanna announced that the Ministry of Youth and Culture has decided to brand Jamaica Festival as a season of activities beginning in June and culminating on Independence Day. The redesigned, this release from the ministry says the redesigned Jamaica Festival includes an expansion of activities to incorporate most areas of the cultural and creative industries, including literature, film, television, culinary arts, and fashion. The program also increases focus on parish and community activities in order to widen the identification, development, and showcasing of talent island-wide. In this regard, the ministry is introducing the Big Stage, which is a talent search. Oh, it sounds like the Big Break competition that we had here, which is a talent search competition at the community and parish levels, which will provide unprecedented exposure for creative talent and present an opportunity for development through the JCDC's new Artist Management Program. At the same time, the ministry is introducing the Auntie Roche Festival, named for the character created by Louise Bennett, to showcase the storytelling talent of Jamaica literary, film, and television communities. Well, I'm reading it through for the first time because I'm trying to find information on what we talked about, which was the 100 years of Garveyism. The 100th year of the UNIA. But I'm not seeing a reference to that in this. Minister Hanna said that Jamaica Festival will continue to ensure that Jamaicans never forget the ancestors who fought and attained our emancipation and our independence. All right, okay, this is a IRFM news story. Okay, and to be inspired by the example of triumph in the face of adversity. The minister said the celebrations would also be used to emphasize the importance of family values to the first ever National Family Day. All right, I think we need more information from the minister regarding the Garvey Day, or somebody in the culture ministry, because I'm not seeing it here. What I'm understanding though is that if you're extending the period of the festival celebration, then one would hope that it really is incorporating everything. What is interesting though, and must be noted, is that we are in a special year in relation to Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey, which is the 100th year of Garveyism, and I don't think it could be contained in this document or in the launch. That to me would have to be a separate activity, considering the nature of what that is. So I'm not sure if it might be that the intention is to include the 100th year of a celebration of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey in all of this. We haven't heard anything, haven't been asked to do anything, haven't been told anything. So in the meantime, we'll just wait and see what's happening. But this is information coming from the RFM newsroom, but also we have a press release that came from the Ministry of Culture. Says, okay. Minister of Youth and Culture Lisa Hanna has announced major changes to the annual Jamaica Festival program. All right, it's very similar. Okay, usually Jamaica Festival refers to the week of celebration from July 31 to Independence Day. But Minister Hanna said her ministry decided to brand Jamaica as a festival, all right, a season of activities. All right, so the news did comprehensively cover that. We understand that at the launch that there was mention of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey, but there were no mention of or special emphasis made on the 100th year. We understand that something was said also about a milestone. The exact quote I do not have. I'm assuming that mention of the milestone would have been the mention of or referring to the 100th year, that this launch took place on Tuesday. So this does shed a different light on what might happen. July 20 is the actual date of the anniversary, 100th year of the UNIA. So that if there are any plans, will you please let us know, Ministry of Youth and Culture, that we need to know about. We like that. Whether there is something for July 20 or it will be pushed back to August 17, the entire celebrations, and so on. All right, so this is from the Ministry of Youth and Culture, that the major changes to the annual Jamaica Festival program, and it's now inclusive of a festival but also emancipation and independence. But we do not know what's going to happen on emancipation either, because I have coming up in the bottom line a comment from Senator Norman Grant, which tells us that there are new plans for emancipation, and we're going to play that. Now 9:28.
Rise up, stop the corruption. Integrity we want in our nation. Corruption is a virus that spread to everyone. So hold up your head and be strong. Bad mind and fear. Corruption that in our society, it have to stop. Dishonest people, it have to stop. Thieving people, it have to stop. Extortion people, it have to stop, it have to stop. So go the right way, no take no shortcut. Don't follow them and get caught up. When you see corruption, you feel talk up. Integrity ambassadors stand up.
Running African, reuniting the African family for development.
All right, we're back with you, and we go to the phone lines now. Akan Priestess Fufie is standing by to talk to us about the Tainos coming back into Jamaica and the event that's taking place over there in Portland, Charlestown, Portland, later on this month, just a few days away, actually, in the middle of the events that are being organized by the Charlestown Maroons. My sister Fufie, good morning, Hotep.
Good morning, Hotep, Machit, Dino T.
Thank you so much. Midasi.
We have to recognize everybody, you know. We have to recognize everybody. So
yes,
as much as we know, we say what we know.
Of course.
So I greeted you in Taino, in your tradition, in my tradition, which are all our traditions.
Of course, my darling, of course. All right, so Fufie, exciting times ahead. The Tainos are scheduled to return to Jamaica. This would be since they came in for the Mwalimu Marcus Garvey's celebrations last year. They've been back already, well, the year before, and they came back they've been back like two times.
Yes, think about this year in February.
Yes.
And worked with the people in Resource on another Marcus Garvey fair, actually.
Of course, and so they're coming back. Tell us about that. When are they coming in? And
you know, Andrea, you said something very important earlier. You said it started here. So it did start with IRFM, you know, my working with you to bring Taino people and get them involved at community level.
Yes.
At community level. So the upcoming Charlestown Festival is June 20 to 23rd. But the Charlestown Council agreed to include a whole day of that conference and devote that to looking at the Taino people.
Mm-hmm.
The Taino people, Taino culture, the Taino survival in the Caribbean, because you know we were talking about the things.
Yes.
But a whole day of the festival, the last day, but you know the Jamaicans say last but not least, is the Monday.
It's going to culminate with this, yes.
Exactly. So some people start with the big picture. These people are ending with the big picture.
Okay. And it's on Monday, June 23.
June 23rd.
Okay, brilliant, yes.
20 to the 23rd,
yes.
And they've saved the best for last.
we love it. We just love it. Well, you know, I attend that event every year in Portland as best as I can. I've missed it probably just a handful, well, maybe 2 times, but I do go, and it's always a brilliant, lovely event. Even though we always come back out with some criticisms, but anyway, that's just what we do as journalists.
Always very informative,
right?
You know, my understanding is always very informative.
Very, and the networking
always explored.
Yeah, always brilliant. So that it's going to end this year on the 23rd of June with
Monday, June 23rd.
Right. And what is it ending with? What are you calling this?
What we have is really a whole set of very, very well spoken. Oh my gosh, the speakers we have, Andrea, they're just out of this world.
Mm-hmm.
Speakers of international renown who are coming into Charlestown to talk about every aspect of Taino. The whole of the myth of you know, Taino's non-existence, you know, they died out of the Caribbean. To say no, that is not so. We know better now. Now Jamaicans know, you know, but we have not been teaching this.
Yes.
We are not teaching this, so we are bringing these people in to support what we know, to get out there and say to people, we know it is true. You know, the history books are changing to show that these people are our ancestors here. And I hope the honorable minister is remembering those ancestors when he says we don't want to forget our ancestors.
Yes.
I hope she's also thinking the Taino people too. They are Jamaica's first ancestors.
Right, I'm sure that she is. And is the Ministry of Culture involved in this at any level?
The Minister of Culture is involved at the wider level of the conference. The conference organizers have been interfacing with all the government agencies and, you know, oh my gosh, so many people.
Okay.
My responsibility has been particularly the Taino component.
Mm-hmm.
So I have particularly been left to just put that day together in terms of the speakers, the agenda for the day. It's going to have, you remember that very beautiful opening, the call to the directions that happened at the Marcus Garvey celebration that you had?
Yes.
We're going to open that day with that. You remember how powerful that was, Andrea?
Of course, yes. I wasn't, I was broadcasting from on the road at the time, but we broadcast that, and I know, and I've watched it since then. Really, really, really beautiful. Well, you have to see that. You have to experience that. So let's move on.
My gosh.
You have to be there to experience that, and don't miss it, because imagine, you know, they've been back. This is twice. They've been here twice now, and this is the third time. And I think for those who hadn't seen them before, this is an excellent time to go on Monday the 23rd. Where is this happening, Fofi?
At the Savoyard in Charlestown, which is basically in Buff Bay, Portland.
Yes. All right. And then who are the speakers who are coming in this year?
Okay, well, we have some very interesting speakers. You remember Mukaro Borrero? He came for your activity.
Of course.
He's coming back again.
Okay.
And so we again have 2 chiefs. We do have 2 caciques, Cacique Borrero, and we have another person, Cacique Jorge Estevez, and he's from the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful person. He has spoken internationally all over the world. He's coming back. You have not met him. We also have a representative from the Taino Nation of the Antilles. You remember Cacique Sibanacan?
Of course.
He sent 2 representatives, Brooke and Gary Gray Sandy. Gary Gray Sandy is interesting because he's born Jamaican.
Yes.
Certified Taino. He has done all the DNA testing, so he's certified Taino. So we can't stand up as Jamaicans and people say we don't know if or we don't know when. He's living proof that Jamaicans have Taino ancestry, Taino blood in their veins.
We claim that identity, understanding our history. Yes.
Exactly. So what we need to do, having claimed it, we need to do those things that really allow us to take possession of it.
Okay. And this is part of that.
To define our Jamaican-ness.
Yes.
With respect to where does our Taino ancestry fit in? I am Jamaican, what does that mean?
Right.
And when we say what does that mean, that must include something Taino, not just the African, but everything that we are, and Taino is part of that.
All right, understanding who we are. We say we are African in the African space, but then there you go. So the Tainos, when are they coming in, and we only get a chance to see them at that venue on that day?
Yes, unfortunately, they're coming in just for the conference this time, and that will be their primary involvement. Okay. We are exploring, because there have been requests for them to come to various places and do various things, so we are exploring the possibility of trying to fit something in the day after the conference, but that is still up in the air, depending on, what their flight is and all of that, their flight times and all of that. So we're trying to see.
Yeah, go ahead, Fufi.
Yeah, we're trying to see how that could work.
All right. I'm sure, Fufi, that we'll hear much more from you in this week leading up to the event, which is on the 23rd. And so people can watch this space, listen to IRA FM, and you'll hear much more about this, how you can be involved. It would be very good if the schools could just descend on Safu Yard on the 23rd.
Yes. I just heard Amina talking about her culture agents. This would be excellent for them.
Of course,
broaden their involvement and meet some people that they can use as resource persons later on.
As a matter of fact, it is right after the big meeting in Kingston on the 19th.
Exactly.
Hint, Amina Wanjira.
I'm going to be at that meeting too.
All right, you're going to be there too, Fufi.
Yes, I made a note, yes.
Okay.
My folk group, Car Folk Singers, was involved in a probably limited way at the start of that culture agent program.
Okay.
And so I feel I should go and support.
Of course, yes. All right, so we'll hear much more from you. Thank you very much, Fufi. And good work. You've understood and recognized and know your purpose, and you have been living it and you're walking in it. Thank you very much for doing this.
You're so kind.
All
thank
right.
you. And thank you. I hope to see all your listeners there on the 23rd. On Monday the 23rd.
Of course, we do encourage you to go out and see. All right, thank you, Fufi. Walk good.
Thank you so much.
All right, Medasi, my sister. All right, it's the Africa Forum, Running African.
Informative. Change. The time is now and the place is here. Andrea Williams on IRE FM.
It's time now for the bottom line. Yeah, I know we're a little bit early with the bottom line, but we go on and see what happens. In the bottom line this morning, I want to address a few issues which by themselves all seem isolated, unconnected, and totally unrelated. However, in some interesting way, they intersect in the most unusual places. In fact, they are indeed all related. First, many persons were shocked and expressed it when they learned last week through the BBC that the U.S. Army had unleashed a series of rules and regulations on its soldiers that literally render the natural hair of black women soldiers, illegal, unlawful, and unprofessional. It turned out that the U.S. Army, in what they said was an attempt to upgrade grooming standards with the aim of ensuring uniformity among troops and ensuring that soldiers looked professional, banned, wait for this, they banned twists, dreadlocks, and large cornrows, effectively banning the black African hairstyles. The bottom line is that while many have continued to berate the U.S. Army for this faux pas, what has been lost on us is not so much the hairstyles that were banned, but those hairstyles which were deemed by the U.S. Army to be professional, well-groomed, efficient, and indeed acceptable. The U.S. Army tapped into the heart of white supremacy and institutionalized racist ideologies and overtly identified the white woman's hair as a standard for the highest levels of professionalism as a standard by which efficiency, decency, dignity and decorum are measured as a baseline for personhood. The bottom line is that too many of our black sisters and brothers have bought into this white supremacist ideology and continue to cream, straighten, curl, and generally getting rid of their natural hair, getting the kinks out in order to fit into a system that will never accept the race as equal, no matter how straight the black woman's hair or how long and blonde her wig. The bottom line is that where black women find that the straightened hair gets them closer to the door, not in the door, mind you, just closer, their skin remain a barrier to entry, and bleaching creams and pills then become the next tools used to destroy the black skin, followed closely, of course, by plastic surgery and denial of the African identity until the black is no longer visible to the naked eye. The bottom line is that black African women, whether in the U.S. Army or the Jamaican Police Force and other institutions, including those run by private sector interests, are under extreme pressure to deny their Africanness in order to fit in with a white supremacist ideology, a white supremacist thinking. The bottom line is that this level of threat against a black African woman is a threat against a black family, the community and the society. For how can a woman who has come to hate herself teach love and confidence to her children and hence to the community? The U.S. Army is not unique in its attempt to continue to oversee the whitewashing of the black identity. The church is complicit in this with its teachings of a white God, Jesus, and all white angels. Our educational institutions are guilty and damned for its continued dependence on a curricula which only seek to reflect, protect, and sustain values that are consistent with racism. Our parliament still maintains a tragic belief that it is in the genuflecting to white institutions that we will free ourselves from economic slavery, from economic oppression. That takes me to the second issue. Watching CVM TV's Live at 7 a few evenings ago, one of the guests, Member of Parliament Raymond Price, referred to the prayer said by parliamentarians at each sitting of Parliament and the fact that the prayer beseeches God through Jesus Christ to ensure that as they, these independent emancipated parliamentarians, meet, that their council may ensure and guarantee the safety, honor and happiness of the Queen of England, but not of the people of Jamaica. This was not the first time Raymond Price had drawn attention to the shortcomings of such a prayer. Also, Andre Hilton and Ronnie Thwaites have drawn attention to that prayer. A prayer that would have a so-called independent and emancipated country beseech God through Jesus Christ for the protection, honor, and happiness of its former enslaver and colonizer, and ignore the people of a said independent and emancipated country. I am going to read the prayer, and that is why I started the bottom line a little bit earlier. So the prayer reads, Almighty God, whom alone kings and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we, thine unworthy servants, have gathered in thy name to do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interest, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, the peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I don't want to get emotional, and I don't want to cry. But this is what is happening in our parliament. When parliamentarians gather, they first of all ask God to protect the Queen, that she be safe, to protect her honor and her happiness. And so many of our young people are unhappy in Jamaica. Jamaica is a traumatized society. Jamaica is a society on the brink of war, poverty, has decimated communities, and our young people are killing each other, and our parliamentarians are gathering and asking for the safety and protection and honor and happiness of those who would enslave us. The bottom line is that Bobby E. Wright was right when he said in his book, The Psychopathic Racial Personality, one of the most serious problems germane only to the black people and our independent institutions is our inability to support and reinforce the ideals, goals, and objectives of emancipation and independence. The white race is not faced with this problem, since it has long recognized that institutions such as the U.S. Army, the Parliament of a Commonwealth, protect and sustain the appropriate direction for the destiny of its people. That brings me to the next issue. Last Thursday afternoon, IRFM News carried an item which indicated that this year's staging of the annual Denby Agricultural and Industrial Food Show, by the way, one which I personally and IRFM we've always supported, and personally, professionally, and have ensured that we encourage others to do so, whether it is through promotional or other means. Well, as I said last Thursday afternoon, the newsroom here at IRFM carried an item which indicated that the staging this year of the Denby Agricultural and Industrial Food Show is expected to cost the organizers some $75 million and an expected turnout of some 100,000 patrons. Good news, that. Good news. But then the president of the Jamaica Agricultural Society, Senator Norman Grant, was quoted as saying, and I quote, a number of overseas visitors are tapped to attend, and that tourism and youth hubs will be at the event this year. The bottom line is that Jamaica's youth minister is also Jamaica's Minister of Culture, under whose portfolio the annual Emancipation celebrations held at Civil Heritage Park since 1998. We want to go on record again as saying we have to do this. So we want to go on record again as saying that the annual Emancipation Day events at Civil Heritage Park was started as a result of the work of a handful of people. Initially, Sister Minion Phillips, who called me when we carried Dr. Ben Yukonon to Jamaica to say, have you been to Civil Heritage Park? Please go and look at what they have on the veranda in a steel case. We went and they had the remains of our ancestor. We lobbied the Ministry of Culture and other ministries and other persons, private and otherwise. And out of that was born two things. One, we returned, led by Sister Minnie, the remains of one of our ancestors, Crystal, to Ghana for one of the biggest events ever held on the continent of Africa, as people gathered for the reburial of ancestors taken from Ghana from the United States. 1998. We're saying this because the history is important. Sometimes we have to go back and fetch it. The bottom line is that Jamaica's youth minister is also Jamaica's Minister of Culture, under whose portfolio the annual Emancipation celebrations held at Civil Heritage Park since 1998 falls. Jamaica's junior tourism minister is on the record as saying and defending that Black History Month should not be celebrated. Black History Month, he says, is an American construct and therefore is not relevant to Jamaica. Is it any wonder then that Senator Norman Grant has made the following pronouncement regarding what appears to be a clandestine, secretive, underhanded, white supremacist decision? It appears to be, until we hear otherwise, it is not so. It appears to be a decision to shelve Jamaica's annual Emancipation Day celebrations held at Civil Heritage Park since 1998. If not to shelve it, then to scale it down in favor of something less black. Senator Grant also said that, and before we go, let me just play this clip from Senator Norman Grant. Listen to this.
It is important that this year Dembe attracts 80 to 100,000 patrons, moving them from all across Jamaica. And we have strategically chose August 1, 2, and 3 to reignite the spirit of emancipation. So, if you want to be happy about us being emancipated, then the place to be will be the Dembe Agriculture Show. And it is the only national event that will be staged in Jamaica during the Emancipation Weekend.
It is the only national event that will be staged in Jamaica during the Emancipation Weekend. We think Denby is a brilliant idea. I think the Denby Agricultural Show must continue. They must get 200,000 people, and I am usually there. It's on our schedule. We think it's very important, but it must not, cannot, should not, and will not replace Emancipation Day celebrations. We are very, very sure of whose shoulders we stand on. We are very sure that we must maintain this hard fought for, and we fought hard. Sister Minnie and others fought very hard for the government of Jamaica to recognize August 1 Emancipation Day, and it will not be co-opted by an agricultural show. I want to talk about the ironies in that, because I don't want to buy into stereotypes. But we're not going to talk about no show with no sugar cane. Senator Grant also said a Denby torch will be carried around the island in the days leading up to the event, following which it will be delivered to the Queen of England. Yes, he said it will be delivered to the Governor General. So it will be delivered to the Queen of England to be accepted by her representative on the island, the Governor General, Sir Patrick Allen himself, a devout Christian. Do you understand now why we say it's all connected? All these issues that seem so unconnected, disjointed. The bottom line is that we talk about emancipation as freedom from slavery. But within the context of the U.S. Army, Jamaica's parliament, which still carries a throne speech, and the proud assertion of Senator Norman Grant that the annual Denby Agricultural Show will be the only emancipation celebrations in Jamaica this year, effectively spitting on the graves of our ancestors who fought and died for the promise of full freedom. We find ourselves in the unenviable position of slaves. Slaves who lack the skills to hold three. For this is the 100th year of the UNIA. Slaves who lack the skills to hold 3 celebratory events, rituals which are necessary to reinforce freedoms, teach our nation's children why we fought and why we will never be enslaved again, and lift up a man who continue to fight for freedom on a global stage. Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey. As Bobby E. Wright argues, blacks are still enslaved today, for the very simple reason that all our life-sustaining institutions are controlled by Europeans. This is slavery, not oppression. In order for a revolution to occur, institutions, not people, must be in conflict. Institutions, not people, must be in conflict. That's the bottom line. This is how we're leaving you on the Africa Forum, Running African, for another day. In between all the threats, in between all the angry words shouted from many different spaces this morning, we are standing firm in the knowledge that we stand together with our ancestors, that I do not come alone. I come in the name and with my ancestor Baba Sam Sharp. I challenge you to challenge Baba Sam Sharp. I come in the name and with my ancestor Baba Paul Bogle. I challenge you. I challenge you to challenge and to criticize and to threaten Paul Bogle. I come in the name of Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey. I come in the name of Queen Nanny. I come in the name of Hatshepsut. We leave you understanding that we do not stand alone. We stand with our ancestors. I am my ancestor. We leave you with that, understanding that the threats that have been made will be acted up on tomorrow morning. Go ahead and do your best. Thanks to my broadcast assistant this morning, Kishima Francis. We welcome her once again on the team. She's always part of a team, but she's totally back on the team and will be with us from time to time. Thank you, Kishima. Thank you for the great work. My name is Kabu Ma'at Kheru. We continue to speak truth to power. DJ Talia is up next. We'll see you next week. Walk good. Until another one, holding.